Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Call the meeting to order. In accordance with the open meeting law, the board states for the record that this meeting is being recorded by NORCAM and may be recorded by other local media. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin on our regular agenda item, Chief Staff's been kind enough to give us a little update on the uncontrolled bonfires nicely that are burning around us. So please, thank you again, Chief Staff, for being.
Thank you very much. So yeah, I just wanted to take a few minutes and update the board on the fire department's operations over the past several weeks. So we started with a significant brush fire in Wilmington that we assisted for several days, and then most recently, starting last Sunday, in Middleton, with a large-scale brush fire that started on the power lines and crept into North Reading up close to Dogwood Lane in the Swan Pond area. And we've been there since Sunday, assisting in different ways. But I just wanted to let you know that there's been no injuries, there's been no loss of property, there's been no true threat to property in North Reading, and the North Reading side has been contained for a few days now. And the most that's happening currently are smolder patches that we keep finding due to the significant conditions that we have. We have limited water, we've had limited precipitation, and the ground is very, very dry. And at times we have very windy conditions, which helps spread that. So with all that being said, today I exercise my authority, which I'm a little hesitant to do, and I'm a little conservative in my approach with that, but I prohibited all open flames in North Reading. So any type of recreational fires in fire pits, chimeneas, charcoal cooking, outdoor cooking fires, everything aside from gas grill. So that's going to go on for an unspecified amount of time until conditions change. So that is that. I also wanted to take a minute to thank all the members of my department, because they've really worked long hours at this fire in particular, and did it mostly with a smile and continue to do it. So I just wanted to update the board and answer any questions that you may have of me.
Just one question I have in regard, even after you lift the ban, can you remind the public when it actually is safe to do, these bigger fires that people do, and when you're allowed to?
Sure. So in Massachusetts, open burning, when conditions are right, open burning starts January 15th up to and including May 1st. And that's when residents can call or actually go online and put in for a permit, and they can burn brush, no leaves or construction debris, but brush that they have in their yard from the winter or from brush piles they've been storing. That's the permitted time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Questions?
No, I just want to thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chief, I just, again, thank you to all the members of the department and
Yeah.
the time that they're putting in, the effort, the response that we're getting. But I think it's also important to point out that this is a prime example of the need to invest in mutual aid between our communities. Over the years, we've had a lot of discussion as to the value of mutual aid between other communities and ourselves. And it seems as though we go an awful lot requiring it. But at times, at some point, God forbid we need it, we want it. And I think this is a prime example of how mutual aid works well for all of the surrounding communities here, and the commitments that have been made by the surrounding fire departments to contain this fire. I mean, we've been fortunate over the years where we haven't had things like happening over in California and other places in the country, but it doesn't take much.
Yeah,
and it takes an awful lot to put these things down and contain them and control them. And what it takes is resources, but a lot of those resources are human resources. It's people on the ground. And again, thank you to you and the members of the department, and to the other communities and surrounding communities who form this mutual aid. And again, to my colleagues here, as we go through the budget, it's important to recognize that we need to make the investment in mutual aid and meet the response and needs of our surrounding communities. But so again, thank you very much for the effort, the ongoing effort, and pray for a little bit of rain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr.
Actually, a lot of
Lawyer.
rain.
Yeah, thank you.
Chief, good, I have questions for you. Just obviously to hear a little more other towns, you know, understand Saugus and Wilmington, I think is a new name for me to hear. But
Yeah.
is there any thought that this could be malice or not? Is that ruled out?
The investigation is ongoing. They're not sure at this point. The scale on some of these fires is very large, such as Middleton, you know, so unless there's a smoking gun that they can point to readily, they're not sure. They're not sure what started these fires. Yeah, you're welcome. And Mr. Lawyer, thanks for those comments, because I think you're spot on with that. That's something I neglected to say. Mutual aid and boots on the ground is what puts these fires out. And it's very intensive and goes back to some of my earlier comments about needing the manpower to do some of these things. And it's very, very labor intensive, like I said. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
just a quick thing to note, he's being modest. I'm not telling you that he goes out every morning and walks the fire line, both in North Reading and in Wilmington. Did so in the dark last week.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mueller, I missed it.
I'm just telling him about
He's sounding your praises.
your routine. Because you didn't share it, I'm going to. He goes out on foot in the woods every day to walk the fire line as a supplement to the work that the guys have been doing in the woods with Engine 6. The crews in Middleton, Department of Conservation and Recreation, Department of Fire Services, but we're in good hands with you, Chief, and I appreciate everything that you do and the effort you've made to keep us updated and to keep things going, and I know that there's 20, 21 other firefighters
Yeah.
behind you that are working and have been in the woods at different points in time, but we're very grateful. I know you've also been assisted by folks with the Department of Public Works.
Yep.
The health director has been part of the conversations, the police chief as well. Maybe not be here this evening or as visible, but we are very much as we would for storm cleanup or otherwise, all pitching in to the extent necessary. And I just want to thank those folks as well. But thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Guberto, and yeah, it's truly a team effort, and that's what it's taken. So thank you.
It is my honor to read the proclamation for Veterans and Military Families Appreciation Month and Veterans Day. Is TJ online or no?
He is not. The Veterans Agent is not able to join us this evening.
Okay.
So apologize for that.
So I'll go ahead and read this, but something I'm very, very proud to have brought forward with the former Veterans Director, Sue Magner. It was something that we were very, very proud and happy to bring forward to North Reading. Whereas during the month of November and Veterans Day, we take time to reflect with pride and gratitude for America's men and women in uniform who have selflessly sacrificed and committed their lives to answer the call to defend our nation. And whereas it is due to generations of this highest caliber of individuals that place them in a category of their own known as warriors, only those who have the courage, strength, and conviction accept with honor and pride to answer the call of duty to protect these United States, which we proudly call home. And whereas during the month of November and Veterans Day, we give recognition and respect to the Blue Star families of our veterans and warriors for the sacrifices they have made. Their continued support is imperative to the continued success of their warrior struggle to overcome the adversities of war, mentally and physically. And whereas during the month of November and Veterans Day, we honor our Gold Star families who have sacrificed the ultimate. Keep them in your prayers. They will forever carry the legacy of their loved one through the memories Whereas during the month of November and Veterans Day, we continue to be cognizant of the mental and physical injuries our warriors and veterans continue to struggle with daily. We as a nation owe them a debt of gratitude, and we must continue to provide services to help them overcome the diversities of war they endured. And whereas during the month of November and Veterans Day, we renew our commitment to our children through guidance and education, the importance of honor, respect, and appreciation for the valor and sacrifice our veterans and warriors have made. We must continue to educate them on the history of this great nation. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of North Reading, do hereby proclaim November to be Veterans and Military Families Appreciation Month and observe Veterans Day on the 11th day of November 2024. With appropriate ceremony and prayer in honor of our veterans and warriors whose steadfast desire through valor and sacrifice preserve the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy. We shall take the time to reflect and remember our heroes and their families for all the sacrifices they have made in order to keep our homeland safe. We encourage you to continue to display the American flag with pride on your homes, offices, and town buildings. Given at the Select Board meeting this 4th day of November 2024 by Select Chair Vincenzo. Let's do that. Thank you. I just feel like it's appropriate to add that we did lose a member of our Veterans Events Committee, our Arthur Cole, this past week. So just wanted to mention that he was a great guy, and he was always there. He was always at all of the events, and gave a lot of his time and gave to us in this country.
Thoughts from anyone else? Want to say any words?
So move to proclaim.
All right, yeah. I'll just add that I think from the first year this was active, I think it's really important because, and I say the same thing every year, the further we get away from a conflict where there's a huge involvement from, you know, a younger generation of Americans, the more we have to think about this, right? Because, like, you know, my generation wasn't, I mean, we were involved in conflicts, like friends of mine went to different parts, but it wasn't like a total out war like some of these others. So, and I think it's important because sometimes we forget that a lot of these, you know, there was a period where 50, 60 years, 70 years, nothing happened, and then all of a sudden there was 3 decades of total, like, just carnage because, you know, kumbaya doesn't always work. So it's good to remember that this is where we came from. So that's all I'll add. Thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez, for reading it.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Mr. Gilberto?
Was there not a motion? So the motion would be to proclaim Veterans and Military Families Appreciation Month and Veterans Day, and to read the proclamation, which we did.
Which was made by Mrs. Gonzalez and seconded by myself. Right, Jen?
Right.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
So you call the vote.
Okay. So the motion on the floor is to actually approve this for the board so I can sign it. So, Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Wallner?
Aye.
Mr. Massey?
Aye.
Mrs. Gonzalez?
Aye.
And the chair is aye.
On to the intermunicipal agreement, Mr. Chairman. So before you is a successor intermunicipal agreement for the Regional Housing Services Office that the town has been a member of, I believe, going back to 2017. Just quickly, more for the public, I think this summary was in your packet. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
The successor IMA would add the towns of Wakefield and Stoneham to this consortium and update the names accordingly based upon the various types of municipalities that are members, both cities and towns. Adds indemnification language that is friendly to the member communities, puts some restrictions on hold harmless for the town of Reading, which I think is in North Reading's favor. Allows new communities to be added by the same terms and includes additional power by the lead community previously had to approve or not approve the decision about allowing additions, so Reading had sort of veto power that they will no longer have for adding communities. Excuse me. Probably most significantly is a change in the scope of work. So for 4 board members who recall the last agreement, and for the benefit of Mr. Massey, the last agreement was written, as were its predecessors. Well, I should say the last agreement was the first that allowed for the use of a consultant rather than an employee of the town of Reading. The prior, I believe it was 2 agreements, were more focused on using personnel who worked for the town of Reading. So the switch was made from an employee to a consultant to run the office and to provide the services to the member communities on behalf of the office. This is a further change in that to more clearly specify what the role of that consultant would be, as identified as a need by the members of the consortium. The term would go through fiscal year 2026, so June 30th, 2026. It would be effective December 1st. And just for the benefit of those who don't know, North Reading's paid in between $13,000 and $15,000 per year for this IMA out of the Community Planning Commission's budget each year. The exact amount determines, or is determined by the amount of hours that we need of their assistance. And to sort of boil it all down, what does this mean for us? I think nearly everybody who's probably watching is aware, for all of our affordable housing units, the units that are counted towards our subsidized housing inventory, they have a restriction in place, an affordability restriction that requires monitoring. And so this office makes sure that the monitoring is occurring in the proper way, make sure when there's a sale that it's happening in a proper way, that it's going to somebody who's eligible. It's trying to, they help us identify people who are eligible in order to maintain that affordability. That's probably the biggest thing that they do. And again, as you know, the town has had a long-term plan to try to get to that 10% affordability component with units constructed in the right locations. And this is important in preserving what we have. So that's sort of a quick summary. To the extent that I can answer any additional questions, I'm happy to do so. And if not, to get answers.
Question?
Just, can you reflect on how we've utilized it over the last 2-3 years?
Mostly the monitoring. So when it comes down to somebody wants to sell a condominium unit that has an affordability restriction on it, making sure that that's happening in the right way. If there isn't a buyer, making sure that that gets flagged to the extent that there might be an opportunity to connect with a buyer who would qualify, because of our provisions at a certain point, the unit cannot be sold to somebody who is eligible under the affordability restrictions, that they do go to the open market. We do everything we can to prevent that from happening, because we don't want to lose that unit, we want to make it available. But that's the biggest thing I would identify. They've helped with lotteries as well when a unit becomes available for rent, for example.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, through you, Mr. Gilbert, what would be the effects to North Reading if we weren't in this agreement?
Probably the biggest thing is we would no longer have direct access to technical assistance for affordable housing programming and monitoring. They're sort of our agent. There's plenty of groups out there at the state level that will help you, or help us, but they tend to be advancing their agenda. This is more focused on the agenda of the communities that it represents, and so that I think is what we have found to be the biggest benefit. And then again, I can't stress enough monitoring and making sure that it's rare that we lose a unit, but it has happened, and they, they're sort of on top of making sure, and they're our agent to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Thank you. And your recommendation would be to go with this agreement?
It would be. I would recommend that we approve it.
Mr. O'Leary?
Yeah, this is a prime example of what we've been talking about over the years of trying a collaborative effort with other communities to share resources, to avoid having to hire additional personnel in every community. Why wouldn't we pool our resources to do so? It's been a success story. Danielle has been advocating for it initially and has utilized the services. Again, it has saved us money in relation to having that additional personnel in order to address the needs. So I think this is a good example of how communities can share costs, share responsibilities, and do things on a collaborative basis. And I think I encourage us to continue to do so.
Mr. Massey, can I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, one more question.
Oh, sure.
There was an advisory committee here. There shall exist an advisory committee composed of one representative, or there is a designee from each municipality who shall be appointed by the town administrator. Do we want to, is that something that's planned to be done?
So the representative to the advisory committee has been the town planner.
Okay.
And so that's what I would envision would continue to be the case. She has a lot of the relationships with the folks who are involved, to the point that Mr. O'Leary brought up. None of us have a housing expert on staff, so this sort of serves in that role, but she is the person who's in communication with that.
Makes no sense. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve and sign the intermunicipal agreement for the Regional Housing Service Office.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Massey, second by Mr. O'Leary. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Wallner?
Aye.
Mr. Massey?
Aye.
Mrs. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Chair is aye. Okay, we'll do board member and old and new business together. Mr. O'Leary?
I'd just like to start off by acknowledging a couple of people who passed on the recent weeks. Tremendous loss to the community from both of them. But first was Kathy Hashem. Kathy was a 37-year member of the North Reading Public School System, Title I director, head of the English department, language arts coordinator, song and dance person, effervescent personality, good friend, passed away a couple of weeks, a week or so ago. But, I mean, just someone who lit up the room and helped, literally helped hundreds and hundreds of students in the North Reading Public School System with her expertise and background. And again, I know there are hundreds of parents that are extremely grateful for her intervention on her children's behalf, and she's going to be sorely missed. And just a wonderful personality, wonderful person. And it's unfortunate that she passed so young. The other individual is Mike Svella. Some people who went to North Reading High School over the last 3+ decades knew him as Goober. Goober is a 2014 member of the North Reading High School Hall of Fame. Was entered as the Hall of Fame as a coach manager. For those who remember, any student athletes and a lot of parents remember Goober being by Frank Carey's side at all the baseball games. He was at all of the lacrosse, girls field hockey, all of the high school sports teams games. Sometimes as an assistant coach capacity, sometimes as a training capacity, statistician capacity, and many of the people in the community would recognize Goober walking down across the common through the center of town with his chair, his cooler, his clipboard, going to all the school events, athletic events, to monitor what was going on. He knew every kid that played every sport, and Mike passed away a week or so ago. Unfortunately, but again, a fixture in the community, a fixture at the high school, and proud member of the North Reading High School Hall of Fame. And his presence, I mean, my wife and I used to put this go probably 2 weeks ago, walking down, sit outside the fence and watch the game. So his presence is going to be missed in the fields. So, other than that, Mr. Chairman, again, I want to acknowledge people's response for the Conservation Commission. We have a number of applicants now, which is good. We need the members who will be contacting those people who put in applications for the Conservation Commission. And it would be negligent to mention that our long-term chair of the Conservation Commission, Lauren Checkles, is not seeking reappointment, which is a tremendous loss for the community. And what she has done over the years, she's been the glue of that commission for more than a dozen years, and done a fantastic job. We appreciate her service to the community, and I look forward to her screening her potential replacements because she's been a tremendous resource. So again, I appreciate the outreach, the administration, and the transcript. It's been a good response, and we look forward to putting forth some candidates' names for consideration for the board in the next few weeks. And that, we're all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Wallner?
I'm sorry to hear about Lori leaving, because she's
So am I.
been really helpful with the whole Swan Pond thing. She's been really just very participating. No, I have nothing else.
Mr. Massey?
No, just want to remind some folks, if you're looking for any North Reading Hornet apparel, the North Reading High School DECA Club is going through, tonight is the last night to make some orders, but I know I told the superintendent I was looking for some North Reading gear, and he sent me over some of this information. But Tech is a great program, creates a lot of entrepreneurial skills with young students. So if you can get the opportunity, you want some North Reading gear, that is a great fundraiser to support. Other than that, just want to say obviously tomorrow is election day. Make sure to vote whatever you like. Whatever you like, it doesn't matter. It's a great opportunity to get your voice heard.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Massey. Mrs. Gonzalez?
Yes, of course, Monday, November 11th is Veterans Day. At 11 o'clock, there will be services up on the hill at the Edith O'Leary Center, as we do every year. And this year, we will have an addition of the high school band performing, which we haven't had before at that ceremony. So if you can make it out there, we'd appreciate it. It's going to be a great ceremony, as it always is. And I just wanted to add my condolences for Kathy Hashem. Can't say enough. It just, like you said, lit up a room. And also condolences to Frank Carey, who we all know was by her side all the time, very committed. So she also had famous brother Sib. Hashem was the drummer of the band Boston, and Sib's daughter married The Rock, so that became her nephew. So yeah, she liked to show that off in her room. So yeah, condolences to a great lady. That's all.
Okay. I have one this evening. So we'll move on to public comment. Just so you know as well that the tax classification hearing is a public hearing. So if you have a comment that you want to make or question about that, you can, you'll get a chance to do it then as well. You can say it now too, but then you can repeat it again if you want to. So either way. So. Anyone for public comment? Mr. Scarlatti, please.
Nothing to do with the taxes yet. As we close another election cycle, I want to thank Town Clerk Susan Duplin and her entire staff for doing a great job as usual. Thank you also to Town Administrator Michael Caberto and the DPW for addressing and resolving the signage issue near 106 North Street that I addressed on behalf of a few residents over the weekend via email, so thank you for that. And thank you to the heroic efforts of the entire North Reading Fire Department as they battle these fires. Thank you.
Anyone online?
I'm not seeing anybody requesting to be recognized.
You're up. Thank you for coming. Mr. Gilberto, we can introduce if you'd like.
My 2 minutes.
Do I have the notice here?
There is a hearing
It's in
notice.
the packet, right?
I have to advise you to
Wait 2
hold off
minutes.
till 7:30.
Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
wait
I
2
don't know if
minutes.
we want to go to maybe the minutes or appointments.
7:29. I have it here. I'll just.
Same.
Everybody's
So
fresh.
the town assessor, Deb Carboni, is approaching the desk with the finance director, Lori Ann Galvin, who everyone is familiar with, here for the annual tax classification hearing. We have a hearing notice that should be read at the beginning. I will say it now, and I'll get us right to 7:30 by saying it instead of saying it later. One thing I will just note is that this is a hearing about the manner in which the tax rate is set. It does not, the outcome does not generate any new tax revenue. We'll get to that during the presentation. If folks are sort of puzzled by that, the reason is because the budget itself is actually set at town meeting, which is back in June. We need to follow state finance law and their schedule, which requires that the year be closed out before the new year is actually confirmed on for the tax rate. So, it's right to 7:30, Mr. Chairman.
So, notice of in-person virtual public hearing, property tax classification. The Select Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, November 4th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. to determine the percentage of the local tax levy to be borne by each class of real and personal property for fiscal year 2025. This hearing will be held in person in room 14 of Town Hall, located at 235 North Street, North Reading, Mass, and via virtual technology as follows, and there's a Zoom link and some numbers. Interested taxpayers may provide comment at this hearing or may submit testimony in writing to the Select Board at Town Hall, 235 North Street, North Reading, Mass. 01864 via email at townadministrator@northreadingma.gov no later than 12 noon on Monday, November 4th.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, before we get into the hearing, I would like to, for the record, just disclose that I have a brother who owns some commercial property on Route 28 and Route 62 in North Reading, where the assessors are recommending a one tax rate rather than a dual tax rate classification. I will be participating in the, I may choose to just participate in the discussion and deliberations of the board, so therefore I just wanted the record to show that the disclosure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, here we are again.
Annual
Thank
event.
you.
Annual event.
Annual.
If you sit there, you have to do the legs,
Oh.
Kev.
Oh.
That one's good. That's good enough. Thank you. Yeah, that's the roll. That's the.
I can do it for you. Just say next slide. I'll do it for you.
I didn't want to throw the whole thing out, you know. So a property tax classification hearing is mandated by the Department of Revenue for the Select Board of any community to vote on 4 items. We're going to go through each item individually, as we do every year. And I'll show you the updated numbers, which really haven't changed too much. We don't stray far from where we are. So the Select Board's role is either to adopt or not adopt a minimum residential factor. We'll circle back on these and I'll explain them. The second vote will be for an open space discount. The third is granting of a residential exemption. And the fourth is granting of a small commercial exemption. This is just an informational slide just to show you where we stand. The residential percentage of the levy hovers around 88–87% of the total tax levy as far back as I've seen it. The commercial and industrial and personal property, which you may hear me identify as CIP, because that's just what we call it. This is just showing you the trend of the total tax base levy from fiscal 2019 to current. Now, as you can see, our residential is borne 88.43% for the 25 tax levy. What is a split rate? Communities may decide to tax the residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property differently. The state will allow an increase in the CIP share of the levy up to 50% higher than the residential. Please note, it does not generate additional money or revenue. You are only shifting the rate. The last tax rates that were ever split in this town was 1985 and 1988. And then they resumed back to the single tax rate. North Reading's property class, this is, I put this in there just so that you have the information. We currently have 4,317 single-family homes. What I'm seeing, I'm gonna just elaborate on that a little bit. You do see a lot of construction going on right now, but really what you're seeing is a lot of tear downs. You're not really seeing a lot of subdivisions, and we have 2 building permits on the new subdivision off of Chestnut Street. But outside of that, they're tearing down an old single family and building a new one. So we had five of those this year. The residential condominium, that of course is Martin's Landing. We're adding 63 units last year. And at least 63 this year, if not double. It will depend on Pulte, whether they put 2 buildings as condo or just 1. I won't know that until the end of the year. The multi-families, that's anything over up to 5 units. We have 74 of those. Mixed-use properties, that is residential and commercial. We have 21. We did take 1 off of the books last year, which they no longer use the commercial, is what happened there. The residential vacant land, we have 190 properties that we have classified that can be built on. The commercial and industrial properties in total equal 313. Personal property accounts, which are the personal property assets within the businesses of the town, we have 534. We had 502 last year. North Reading residential property, oh yeah, we did that. So this is a slide for 2024, just to show you where we were. In 2024, we were at $811,898 for the average single family. This year we are at, how did I forget that number? 855.02.
I can toggle back and forth.
Again, this is just the numbers and where they were in 2024 versus where we are today. As you can see, it's very consistent.
For you, Mr. Chair, could you give an example of personal property accounts?
Sure. So when you walk into, let's see, if you walk into Stop and Shop, that's a corporation. So we're going to be able to pick up certain accounts there, certain assets. So it's furniture, fixtures in inventory. So if you walk into a beauty salon, you're going to pick up a lot more, because typically, number one, those are not corporate, where they're paying a corporate tax, so they would pay more tax than the personal property. For a beauty salon, you're going to pick up all your furniture.
I asked the question, you're picking on the beauty salon.
I thought it would just hit home. So we would pick up the furniture, such as the chairs, such as the stations. We would also pick up all of your products, such as that as inventory. So that is a typical personal property account. And we do, just like we do with our commercial and our residential, we do have boots on the ground. We do go out there. We do inspect them. The personal property accounts, we go out there and we use that the same as we do the tax-based properties. We inspect so many of them every year. They are not just here. You know what I mean? We don't keep them on the tax roll. Whatever they had last year is same as this year. That's not how we operate. We physically walk in there and check. And then, of course, any new businesses, if one closes, another one opens, That's a new business account, and we picked that up from scratch. Yep,
Thank you.
yep. Okay, now we're going to circle back and we're going to go over the votes of what you need to actually vote on. So open space discount, although we do not have any classified open space in this town, this is still a vote that has to be taken. If we don't take it, then we haven't held this hearing in full. We do have Chapter 61A. We have 2 accounts for that, but that is taxable property. It's not open space. It's classified property. So I just wanted to let you understand that those are 2 different identifiers for the open space versus our farmland or Chapter 61A. The residential exemption. So the select board has the option of adopting an exemption for just the residential property of up to a 20% shift. When you shift that, what you're doing is you're taking, in your packet, you can see I gave you scenarios. Our average household residential is 855,002. Then I gave you a house worth 580,000, and then on the higher end is 2 million. So what you're doing is you're shifting that 20% from the middle. It stays the same, but the 580 would receive that 20% exemption, and it goes over to your higher houses over the average. Did that make sense?
Did you mention $850,000 is the, or approximately that, average valuation for a home in North Reading?
It's 855,002.
Our October town meeting, I think we were at 811. I think we've been saying that for the last, at least since I got elected. When did that jump up $40,000?
So on the previous slide, when I gave you the scenario for 2024, there's your 811,000. That's the number you've been hearing. We didn't have these numbers certified, this 855,002. We had that certified the beginning of October. So now I can disperse those numbers and release them to the public.
Ms. Cooper, do you mind showing the other slide that shows the 850 just for a comparison? So for 4317, and do we go, do you mind going to the next one? 4317, 4314. Oh, okay, so we got a few houses. Must be nice houses. Thank you, appreciate you.
You're welcome. So the residential exemption, like I said, you're shifting that 20% from the average house value of 855,002, reducing the lower homes and shifting it over to your higher end homes. And yes, we do have $2 million homes in this town. We have quite a few.
Just another question. When town meeting took action in June in relation to the senior tax program, and we're talking about doing a shift in residential taxes, is this where it's going to take place?
No, this is a whole separate entity. And at the end of the hearing, I do have an update on that. You're talking the senior means, Steve?
Correct.
So I do have an update, and I can explain how that works.
Great.
We'll keep that with that
Thank you.
slide.
Yep.
And these are just the scenarios if you can shift up to the 20%. So I gave you scenarios based on 10%, and I gave you scenarios based on 15 and 20. And here you can see the tax rate. We are looking at a reduction in the rate from 1321 to 1306. But I do want to say it loud and clear, this is not certified. It can't be certified until we hold this hearing anyway, so. This is what we're sending into the state tomorrow. Or Wednesday.
I don't want to be the town clerk sign tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, good call. Good, that's a good call, Lori. So this is the 20% exemption. Here you can see the savings on the lower end being $1,514.96. But that $1,514.96 is shifted over onto your higher end homes.
Question, how do we set the number for low and high? Or is this just an example?
It's an example.
Okay.
Because you can shift up to the 20, so I just did it in increments of 5.
It's arbitrary, not arbitrary. Pick a number.
Okay.
The mathematics are
I
correct.
think the question's about the values, though,
The
right?
values, I mean, so how do you, on the low end, pick anyone under 580 to get the help?
Mhm.
And then on the high end, how do you pick who carries the burden?
It's anyone above or below the average. So below
graduated.
55.
Yeah, it's a graduated
Okay.
amount.
So I just took from the middle how many we had below the 855. I could have gone up a little more on the 2 million, but I figured I'd just keep it there. Do we have any other questions on the exemption?
Are we going to vote on these
Yes.
one at a time?
Yeah.
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 Like after we finish this section?
Yes.
And after we do double check, yeah.
Mhm. So next is the commercial exemption. The commercial exemption is the exact same process as your residential exemption. It works the exact same way. The only difference in this is the Department of Unemployment Assistance sends the assessors, which is not open to the public for review, for us to look at the businesses in town. The businesses in town, the eligible parcels, have to have a valuation of less than $1 million and employ fewer than 10 employees. That we only have 2 in this town, and I can tell you, we do go through it. So you only have 2 that would actually even qualify. So here we are at classification, and this is where the board would make a determination as to whether you want to split the tax rate or if you want to keep the residential factor of 1, meaning everyone will have the same tax rate, which is what we have done. The tax impact, again, I just want to reiterate, we are not generating any additional revenue. You are only reallocating the revenue. This slide is just for informational purposes, and it's to show you the percentages. The 5.74 is our commercial-based properties that the levy holds. The green, the 3.71, is our industrial. Personal property is the purple, and that's 2.12. Our residential, again, is the 88.43% of that levy. This is, again, it's showing you how the effects would happen if you were to shift the rate. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see it. So here I did 100% of the taxes paid, and then if you were to shift 10%, the impact that that would have. So if you look across the residential, the tax rate would go down by that percent. And then the tax rate would increase on the commercial, industrial, and the personal property. And your 2 farm properties would be part of that commercial. So I chose the increments of 110, 125, and then to the max of what would be 150. And your percentages of the levy are right there on the left-hand side.
And I ask the same question every year. Outside of a few outliers with special considerations, typically when do you start seeing, what percentage split between residential and / commercial industrial do you see before these tax codes are effective? Like a split?
Right. So to answer that, there is no rule of the law. There's no statute base. Since 1988, once the Department of Revenue gave communities the opportunity to split this rate, really came down from Boston, to be honest with you. I can give you a story on that. But back in the day, and I'm gonna outdate myself on this one because it was back in 1987, it would have been 30%. In other words, at least 30% of your CIP would bear the levy amount before you shift. You know, there's many factors that go into that. You know, the communities around us, and there's a slide, we'll circle back on that, but the communities around us that do shift their rate have a much higher percentage in their CIP. They also have sewerage. Our commercial industrial buildings, they're limited with the exception of River Park. River Park is on the Wilmington side, so that's on sewerage. But at the end of the day, you can't take 320 Main Street down here and say, okay, I'm going to tear this building down and I'm going to put up whatever I want. No, they're limited. When a community, and I don't mean to be harping on lack of sewerage, but there's a lot of small bedroom communities that without it, you are limited what you can do with that property. So you're not going to see that commercial industrial tax base shift that much because of the limitations. Did that explain it?
Yeah, I mean, it's more of, I was just trying to, we effectively have a 90-10 split.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I mean, for the businesses we know in the area, I mean, I don't feel bad for Stop and Shop.
Right.
But everyone else.
But the mom and pop shops.
I mean, it would
right.
be, also Wendy's does pretty well, McDonald's, franchises in general.
Right.
They're in a different model, but for everybody else, you know, small businesses, small restaurants, hair salon.
The mom and pops.
Yeah.
I mean,
it would be
that's
a pretty significant that, you know, you wake up Tuesday morning and it's like, guess what the select board did last night? I mean, it's a big number.
It is.
So,
Which were you, Mr. Chair, you know, if you broke it down per household, it wouldn't be that much of a difference. But it would would really hurt that small mom and pop.
Right, which if you think about it, if you start losing any more of your commercial, industrial, and personal property tax base, because of that, and I'm not trying to sway anyone's vote, I am just here to give facts and I guess years of experience. But at the end of the day, if you look at shifting from 110 to 125, they're saving $1.25, I think. I'm having a hard time seeing it. So at 110, instead of $13.06, the residential would pay $11.75. If you shift to 125, they pay $9.80 versus the $13.06. But your commercial at 110 is going to go from $13.06, if you shift it 10%, is going up to $14.37. If you shift it to 125, it's going up to $16.33. So you need to, weigh that balance. Is it, beneficial for the town to shift that rate? You're not getting any more money, you're just shifting it. What is the desire of the board on that? And 30% back before the Department of Revenue didn't put it on the local to make determinations, that 30% rule of thumb was so much easier to go by because you had your pie. You knew, okay, well, we're at 88% and they're, CIP's at 12. We're not there yet. So it was just very black and white. Now it's not black and white anymore. This is a scenario from fiscal year 2020 to fiscal year 2025. And this is in there because if you can see the tax rate in 2020, 15.60, and now in 2025, we're down to 13.06. I mean, obviously that is for a lot of reasons, but having bond debt, we are now coming down after getting some of the debt off of our shoulders, and we're getting back down there. But you can look at fiscal year 2020 through 2022 as an investment. We did the high school, we had to do the middle and high school, and now we're getting back down. So these are just the taxes in which each class has paid over the years. Are there any questions on this?
Mr. Chair, through you. Is this just only a shift in the rate, and it can't we cannot increase one or the other without shifting the residential?
Right. So if you were to shift the rate, the residential would take the decline at whatever percent.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, is this hearing only for shifting? We can't say, hey, we want to put up, keep residential, but we want to raise this X percent, etc.
Oh, no, I know what you mean. No.
Does the residential have to go down?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
The residential has to, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because our tax-based levy has to be what it is. That's what we're saying to the Department of Revenue we're going to raise. So the only way to do that is through the tax rate. So you can't shift one without the other. So you do have to have that balance.
Can you shift just industrial and keep, I'm trying to think, can you break out industrial separately?
No.
And why
No,
is that?
the CIP.
Isn't there other towns that do that, where they have residential?
No. But if they do, I don't know
commercial,
nothing about it.
and industrial?
So,
There's one pot.
CIP is one class, if you will, for this purpose.
And so there's an industrial and commercial?
Yep, so the commercial, industrial, and personal property are all one pot, and then you have your residential. So you can't just exclude the industrial out from the commercial and personal property. Am I understanding
Really?
that question
Okay.
correctly?
Yeah, you are. Thank you.
Okay.
Has any businesses sent you letters giving their opinion on the tax rate shift, on the hearings that are coming up, or?
I have actually never received one. I do know early on when I first started here 16 years ago, some of the smaller businesses would show up. And I think it's advantageous for them to show up, but they don't. I can tell you, I have Middleton classification next week, and sometimes we'll get a couple of the small businesses there too, because again, that's a bedroom community.
Understood. Thank you.
If I just in response, this is like one of the first years in a long time that we haven't heard from the North Reading Chamber of Commerce weighing in. For the most part, they've been
That's
pretty
correct.
vocal about and appreciative of the board's support maintaining, one rate. But in years past, for the most part, they come in here almost every year with a recommendation saying, keep it at one, because they believe it would harm their membership, which are our local businesses. So I'm surprised we don't have a representative here, although Lisa left a year or so ago.
Yes.
Lisa was very active and
Right.
involved. And kept on top of it, and was always a presence here. And they always had a meeting prior to our classification hearing to take a position, to make a recommendation to the board. This is the first year or two, in a long, long time. Most every year they're in here.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, through you, Mr. O'Leary, 1988, probably around the time you started, but might be updating it. Has there ever been a select board vote on this that's been 3-2, where maybe some select board members have considered changing that, or has it really been a unanimous to near unanimous board in the town that has understood the conditions of where we are? And I'd just be interested in that.
My recollection, my first year on the board was 1988. There was a classification year that year, which I believe I voted no on. And again, that may have been a 3-2 vote. For the most part, there may be, once in a while, there's a member that kind of sniffs around it and says, why don't we try this and see what happens. But for the most part, there's been near unanimity in all the years I've been sitting here. Occasional, a lot of discussion over different times. But when you looked at the numbers, it was like, all right, I can save the local residential, average residential homeowner, like this year maybe, $90 a month, but the average commercial property is going to cost them $150 more a month. They say, what's that doing to our little mom and pop businesses here? What's that doing to our image in relation to trying to get some economic development and more investment in property owners that are here, commercial property owners, to make the investment here? So again, the 90-10 split is what really, the weight of the impact on the average commercial property is significant. And I think over the years, the board has just kind of recognized that. And again, reinforced by the local businesses through their organizations that come before and say, hold pat.
Mr. Oberlin, do you have something to add from Mr. Massey?
Just briefly, yes. My recollection is that over the past 10 years, there may have been a year or two where we were not seeing great compliance from businesses in reporting their personal property and income and...
Their income and expense, but I can speak to that today. It has improved. We're still right around 80% return.
Sure, so we saw a dip in folks disclosing things for tax purposes. And I recall a member or two maybe expressing hesitation on the vote. I'm not sure that they actually voted not to have a single tax rate, but that's my recollection.
Yeah, there was discussion at that point of lowering the hammer on them because they're not disclosing it and working with the assessors over the years. So there was a shot across the bow from the board warning them, non-compliance would force us to consider it.
And compliance improved. So,
In compliance to improve.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just to make a few comments is certainly understand. I dug into this a lot and speaking with some businesses as well, but the septic tank maintenance is a real thing for business, especially restaurants. Not to mention, you drive around North Reading right now, you may make a case that there's actually a decline in businesses. I certainly see more closed storefronts than just 5 years ago when I moved in. And as Ms. Gonzalez noted, the increase on this percentage really doesn't, because of the way 88% to 11 or 89 to 11, the residential homes aren't benefiting as much as you believe. So thank you.
Could I just add something, please? While we're on the topic of the income and expense, I always take this opportunity to remind my commercial and industrial people that if they have not turned it in, I will give them another week. If they do not return their income and expense to my office by next Monday, they are charged $250 as a tax lien on their tax bill. And there's no exceptions. If they don't turn it in and they come to my counter, they are denied.
I think you should increase it.
Yeah.
So I can't, that statute, that's as high as I can go. Yeah, I went right to the max. We didn't even stop.
Is that state statute?
That's state statute, yes.
So maybe we should suggest to our legislative
Yeah.
delegation that they provide some,
I think from a business point of view, I'll pay the $250 and I'll tell you everything else that's going on.
Absolutely.
So I want to allow the public to give their input and then, any other things. So was there, you beat me, yeah, conclusion. Look at that, should have just kept my mouth
So
shut.
in the conclusions, this is the select board's voting part of the hearing. So the tax rate must be set and tax bills must be mailed before December 31st. The option votes before the select board tonight are 1, to retain a single rate in FY25, or B, split the rate in fiscal year 25, vote on the residential exemption, vote on a commercial exemption, and to vote on an open space exemption. Those are your votes before you tonight.
Thank you. I'll go for anybody here who has a question. Please, if you can just give your name and address, please. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Hi, my name's Tom Ansley from 42 Tower Hill Road here in town. And, every year I kind of take a back seat because we have elected officials to kind of oversee what goes on. And personally, I've always been bothered by the even tax rate, because I always felt that a town should promote people coming into it. Yeah, we have a town, we don't have sewer, septic is a big deal, but it's something that should be worked around. And no town does good unless they have a commercial tax base. That's the only way to help a resident. And it's interesting to see how small our commercial tax base is in this town. And I own commercial property in the town. It's like, I don't want to take a hit, but that being said, if if you buy a cup of coffee in North Reading for $3, and you go to Newton, that cup of coffee is $3.50, $4. Just an example. And that's just a reflection of that town. It's like, we have many towns around us, very, very few are equal tax rate. Most of them, the commercial picks up a higher percentage, and that's how we help the residential people in the town. We're a bedroom community. We need a commercial tax base. And it's like, I just think, I'm up here to let the board know that years and years just keep going by, and I've been in the town for 40 years and married a family that's been here for probably almost, 150. We need to promote it. There has to be work done to get a foundation of a commercial base. And I don't know the circumstances of Edgewood and Martin's Land and how that all came about. But I always felt that that was a missed opportunity for our town. Because unless someone tells me different, I don't think that helped our town. That put more strain on our schools, it put more strain on our police and firefighters, and it put strain on the infrastructure of our town. It's like, when do we change course? When do we help the people that, and it's funny, here I am, I'm getting to the point, aging out. I don't want to move out of North Reading. I'm living in a third generation house. It's like, it's expensive to live here. And I don't agree with the tax rate. But I understand after sitting here with you all today that, yeah, it's a burden because we don't have a good commercial tax base. I'd love to see something done to promote coming to this town and starting a business, not have a comment made that, businesses are closing and we have empty storefronts. It's like, I think we have a good town. I think it's a town that people should want to come here and do business. That's it.
Thank you.
My 2 cents.
I'll comment a little bit on that as well. So part of the issue, because although sewer is a big part when we went through it, the other issue we have is that even along our route, because of our wetland setback, it makes it very difficult to put commercial size septic or wastewater treatment plants. So you could have someone that looks like they have a very big lot on Main Street, but then when you take into account all the fun stuff you have to do regulatory wise, that lot, it goes from this to this is buildable, and now it doesn't become profitable. But I agree, it's like what else we can do. I've only been in town since 2017, and these numbers have looked pretty much the same. That 88, 80.5, they haven't really changed. And I bet if we go back 30 years, they're probably not significantly different. So it's definitely, I'll summarize your comments, are frustrating.
It is.
And I'm being, nice with the camera.
I'll just add to that if I can. So for example, where Martin's Landing is right now, we first looked for commercial buyers in there. The best we could get was a $2.5 million offer for a soccer facility. That was the best we got. By opening it up to best use, we ended up with a $30 million influx from Pulte with a 55+ community. Recognizing that 2/3 of their taxes is going to support the schools, and they came in with no kids. So that has actually been a huge, huge bounty for our town. The most frustrating part is that everybody always talks about how we need sewer, but recently the town rejected that. So it really is standing in the way of being able to do anything. So we're really caught between a rock and a hard place. We don't have any good answers for that. We are having a strategic meeting in a week. It is our challenge to try to figure out how to work around that. But the most obvious thing is without sewer, we're limited. And when there was a big property that was available, the commercial interest was far less than what we got by creating a residential area.
Just to echo Mr. Walmer's comments, but just to respond earlier, when I said to decline businesses, I certainly didn't mean it's not a great town. What I meant was that, and I think it's evident, I think our assessor and our finance director agree, is that it's evident, it's a fact that businesses are leaving. And it's a double-edged sword. It is very difficult, and that's why I've grappled with it too. I'm never for more taxes, and I agree. You know, commercial, they're making money while the single-family home is not making money. But just wanted to clarify that my decline comment was not intended that way. Thank you.
Mr. Mackey, please.
Okay.
What? Did you want to say something? Oh, please. Sorry, Mr. Mackey. I'm going to let Mrs. Gonzalez just, did you want to speak to that?
No, Mr. Mackey can go ahead.
Then you can respond to both.
I will bow to Mr. Mackey.
Thank you. Kevin Mackey, 18 Adams Street. We've been talking about the percentages. The things. Do we know what the dollar value would be if we do raise, or switch the tax rate on the commercial? Like about how much their tax bill will go up each year?
That was the percentage.
Sure, there's a previous, right here is the shifting for a scenario. If you start from the left, the residential, you can see the decline. See where it says rate 110?
Yeah.
So that's the rate 125 and the rate 150. That shows you the decline in the residential based on those percentages. Now your CIP, the commercial, industrial, and personal property, you can see in those very same columns the increase in their rates.
So do we know of the 12% of the businesses, like what their average, I mean, we have it in total, is it like an extra $1,000 a year in taxes?
Oh, you mean, Mr. Mackey, like the breakdown like for RBK Plaza versus?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly get you that.
I was just kind of curious about how much, because we're talking about the percentages and what it actually physically means, like how much that they have to physically write more each year in taxes. If it's like $500 a business over the year.
So if you look at the increase from the single rate being 1306, just take it all the way to the 1959 at $19.59. That's per thousand. Now I can tell you 72 Main Street is valued at $6,769,000, I think. Right here, I know it's 16 million, almost 8. So if you take that 16.8 and multiply it times the 1959, that would be the increase in tax. I mean, I can do it.
What property is that?
Walmart.
That's Walmart.
I'm going to let Ms. Gonzalez go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to reiterate the rest of the board. And I'm sorry, what I missed your name.
Tom, D'Angeli.
Tom. We all feel your pain. We all pay taxes here. We all live in the community. We feel your pain. We see the same thing. We tried to introduce SOAR to make a change in that. And unfortunately, the townspeople chose not to go that route. That was our best shot at changing things and bringing in some bigger business. As you hear, the septic, it deters these businesses from being able to come in and build the way they want to build and do what they want to do. They hear septic and they say never mind. So it makes it more difficult. And so we're back to the drawing board. And don't think for a second that we're not all thinking about it and how can it happen. And there's so many subcommittees that work on these things. Nobody's ignoring it. We all know the problem. We all know that it needs to be fixed.
It just seems like it's been years, you know, if I'm talking with
Well, again, for
relatives.
years,
Right.
SOAR has tried to be introduced and
But-
constantly.
But speaking with, you know, relatives that, you know, really, they were the foothold of this community. I'm married to the Eisenhowers. And, I mean, they just, it's like, it's just kicking the can down the road for so many years. And here we are, you know, 60 years later, and we're not in a better position, really.
Mr.
You know?
O'Leary, when did we first introduce SOAR?
When did we what?
When did we first introduce SOAR?
30 years ago.
When I first ran in 1988, we were talking about it.
Right, but wasn't
Kicking
it?
that can down the
And
road.
then in the 1970s, we were talking about the MWRA.
It would have already been paid for by now.
Right, but I think that sewer was a proposition back in the early 60s, and it just, you know,
Correct.
frankly, it was the mom and pop businesses that didn't want to foot the bill for it, and, you know, and really, that's kind of where we are today, wanting to keep everything an even split. And, you know, I mean, it is a double-edged sword, because I do get it, you know, if you looked at appraisals and tax rates and everything going over years, it's like businesses don't feel like they should be burdened by paying more to support school systems because they're not putting kids through school, you know, and I mean, that's been an argument that I've heard over the years. But that being said, you know, that's why I think that I'm not opposed to a higher tax rate for businesses. That's really my bottom line.
Okay.
And I just think that, you know, like the example I gave with the cup of coffee, it's like, you know what, coffee's more 30 miles from here.
So, sir, look, that comment actually resonates. And what I mean by it is that I think another way to put your comment about the coffee is that because of what North Reading, just from a median income standpoint, has become the last 10 to 15 years especially, an argument can be made that if there was a shift in tax code, then you just raise your cup of coffee to $3.50, and you're probably still going to get the $3.50. Now that's an economic argument of whether or not, you know, businesses would make that decision. So I'm just saying that because I do understand your point, because I don't know if it's Newton, so I have no experience for that one, but in general, there are communities where, you know, just like when it's done at the top of the house of a Fortune 500 company, you raise my cost, I raise the cost, and somehow the consumer always actually ends up paying the higher cost. They do, I mean, and so I see where you're going with that. I just think that it's just hard to execute because of the low amount that it would be versus some other communities. Mr. Mackey. And then can you go online after? We'll take one online if anybody, please.
So just to ask it differently then, so we have the average house value of the households of $850. Do we have an average value of businesses?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my ultimate question is, I assume, so Walmart will probably, if they have an increase, it won't be as detrimental, obviously, as opposed to like a pizza shop.
So I just did the math for Walmart, and that was the 1306 with the single rate, and then I went to the 150, and it would be 109,704 based on 16,800,000. Okay, so in those aren't the exact number of what I have it valued at. I know it's around there. So that's an additional 109,704 was shifting that rate to the 150.
So that would go on to that one specific business.
That would be an increase over what they're already paying us, in addition to.
And do we know, so if the difference in rates between the highest business and like the lowest business, like the value of those businesses? Are there more businesses like at the higher end, like Walmart, or are there more businesses valued at the, like the lower end?
So our highest valued commercial industrial property obviously is Concord and River Park. Your businesses along Park Street and Main Street, with the exception of Walmart, your Dunkin' Donuts, your franchises, those are our lower end. So our mom and pop stores, which consumes the majority of our Main Street and Park Street area, those are our lower end businesses.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
I think so.
Mr. Gilberto, anyone online? Or anybody put a question in the chat?
I'm not seeing any, no.
Could we go forward to the slide that shows the surrounding communities? Oh. So this was put in there just today. And if you look at the communities that are compared to, there are surrounding communities. The first column is your residential, and there again, those are the percentages of the levy that are borne by the residential class. The next column to the right is the commercial, industrial, and personal property. I did total the CIP up right before you get to the column of the average single family. So you can look down that list right there. North Reading is the one highlighted in the yellow. So if you take the town of Wilmington, their total CIP is 42.111. Total of North Andover is 21.187. Andover is 29.134 versus their residential that is around 70%. So that's how you get to, if you're going to split the rate and the tax base, and if you look at the town of Linfield, they have Route 1, they have Main Street, they have Summer Street, what other street?
They have Market Street.
Market Street. So those are all factors when we want to compare our town of North Reading compared to our counterparts. We have to look at all of the whole picture.
And when I was talking about earlier outliers, Linfield is the best scenario where this gives the percentage, but it does not give the percentage breakdown of revenue. And that 15% in Linfield is worth more than some towns that have 30–40%
That's
in commercial.
Exactly.
So that's the other thing. So meaning, if tomorrow we had all of Main Street magically done in North Reading, we might not get up to above 20, but we may have huge revenues. So that's what I meant about outlier like Linfield is, because Market Street is, you know, it's a postage stamp versus the rest of Linfield, but it's, the revenue from it, it's just
is incredible.
Incredible.
Yep. Thank you, Mike.
The exception is Reading shows 6.9%, but that's, I think that's because when they did their circuit breaker match program, they offset that program, which we'll be doing next year, to offset it just a little bit to the commercial to pay for that. And so it's a very small adjustment.
So the circuit breaker can't be offset by the commercial, industrial, and personal property? That can only be shifted on the residential?
Somehow or another, we're going to have the same issue. They did something to change that rate, so they did split the rate.
Yes.
They split it in order to have the commercial make a contribution towards the
towards
covering the cost.
That is correct.
You know,
So they split the rate.
So while the shift of burden as far as that tax break for the seniors is done on the residential properties only, they did a shift here in this particular case
To offset
to help offset that. so that the commercial properties would be paying a certain percentage of that senior tax rate.
And we'll be doing the same thing in
And actually,
2026.
good segues, you were gonna say it anyways towards the end. Do you wanna give us the mechanics of how that will work, what we voted in on that exemption?
Absolutely.
Or you're raising your hand, do you wanna do it?
No.
I know what thanks for asking.
I will do it, but
yeah.
I'm only just looking to highlight that this chart was generated in response to a written comment that we received from a resident, Paul Keefe of 10 Jewel Circle. I know Mr. O'Leary had a phone call with him. I know Mrs. McNeil spoke with him on the phone as well. I want to thank him for reaching out and bringing this issue up. And we felt it was appropriate to respond by generating this. For those who are at home, this presentation will get posted to the town's website tomorrow for anyone who wants to look at it as well and be able to look at this information. We used similar information when we were talking about the budget in the springtime and the discussion about the override, just showing that comparison as well. So I just wanted to, more for the record, note that we did get one piece of written correspondence that came in. It was forwarded to the select board today, and we did factor that into the presentation here.
Mr. Goldberg.
So back in June, at the annual town meeting, the town did vote in what's called the senior circuit breaker exemption. We had to write a home rule petition, submit that to the House of Representatives. That was done shortly after the town meeting. We just heard from the Senate today that they have accepted the home rule petition. This exemption will be put in place for fiscal year 2026.
Governor's told us to sign.
Assuming you signed it.
Assuming the governor's going to sign.
Sign. Which if it gets this far, usually I can imagine. But anyway, that is our intention. We will be rolling out of my office, the assessing office, we'll be rolling out some facts and dates in which, because we'll be the first year of implementation, we will be accepting the applications a lot sooner than maybe other towns do. But that's going to be in our best interest because there's a lot of review that has to go through these, and we want to make sure that we're doing them accurately and 100%. So we're looking at an August 1st date for the applications to be submitted. We have most of the stuff's already put together. And we'll also be joining the Council on Aging. We'll go over there, we'll talk to them. Another thing we've thought about is to maybe hold like some kind of meeting in room 14 in the near future on the senior needs exemption, just so that we can reach as many seniors as possible.
I think that's a great idea. Mr. Roberto?
I just wanted to note, for us to be able to have, we had a lofty goal. We know we have by charter a late town meeting in June. We had a lofty goal of trying to have this in place for fiscal year 2025. We knew that it was going to be a stretch. And I want to recognize Representative Jones for getting this through the House before the end of formal sessions. Unfortunately, we weren't able to hit the roughly September 1st deadline that we needed in order to be effective with trying to implement this. It would have been a smaller program because it wouldn't have been much outreach anyway. And while we didn't hit that timeline for this year, the Senate's action now, we hope will mean that we won't need to refile the bill for the next legislative session and then be waiting on the front end as the legislature is organizing. So we're hopeful that this will get over the finish line and that we'll know with a long lead time that it's in place.
Anyone else from the public? Anyone online? Anyone else?
I'm not seeing it.
Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing portion.
Just one more thing that...
And then go to select board. Go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of elicit from, or solicit from the assessor, did the Board of Assessors make a recommendation in terms of a rate?
The Board of Assessors do recommend a factor of 1 or a single tax rate.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Massey.
No, thank you. I just wanted to clarify something with the home rule petition for the commercial tax. The commercial is chipping into that program, correct?
No, the way, so it's not the home rule petition, it's the way the Senior Means Act is written. So when...
I mean, I understand the residential taxes take a break for seniors, but is commercial chipping into that?
No,
Okay.
no, no. So the abated amount that comes off for the exemption, there are two ways in which to raise that money. You can take it out of the overlay, or you can disperse it amongst the residential so that the residential consumes that amount. Like we've talked about the other option, the way Reading did it, they increased modestly on the commercial to offset so that the residential wasn't taking the whole burden. Those are your only two options.
I think that's what you were saying as well.
So we could decide to do that
That's what-
theoretically next year.
Next
That's
year,
what we-
But basically,
next year.
what a community could do, because the law, the way that it's written, only allows it to happen within the residential assessed valuations,
Yeah,
commercial, is that, you know, go up 1% or 2% rather than the 5 or 10 or 25, you know, to help offset the cost and share the burden across all property owners in the community.
We should just check between some of our correspondence to make sure that.
What do you, I'm sorry, what was the, about,
I was told that the commercial would be included.
Who told you that
Someone at this table.
at this table?
The commercial will be included when we voted in June?
For the seniors, yeah. But that's fine, we can discuss that offline.
That was the presentation.
Mr. Mackey?
Can I ask a question about this?
Yes, yeah, please.
So Kevin Mackey, 18 Adams Street. So one of the criteria was you had to be in the town for at least 10 years. Do we know how many seniors would qualify for the exemption but are not qualified because only, not fiscally, but just because they weren't in the town long enough? Because then they are going to have to contribute into subsidizing those people. And are we potentially hurting some seniors only because they haven't been in the town long enough?
Well, there's like 400 to 500 people that have filed for a circuit breaker match, like a year ago, something like that. It's approximate.
500.
But that's, anybody can file for a circuit breaker match. How many of that 400 or 500 haven't been here for 10 years? I don't think we have any idea.
Do we have that number?
We'll find out.
That's what the
We'll get to that.
assessors will determine when they do their due diligence on it. But the maximum amount of people that would qualify is the 500 and some odd, per se, that qualified under the state income tax rules. Some of those people, to your point, may have been shorter term residents and may not qualify yet. And yes, we're share in the burden.
So potentially, we want to help as many people as possible, but there's still a chance that we're going to harm a few seniors potentially.
Modestly.
Modestly, some, but just, I don't know, I was just curious what we thought that percentage
Yeah,
would
but
be.
until we get the applications,
So you
the
don't
assessors go through.
The intent though is to provide a safety net
Yeah,
for
it
long-term residents who have been here the longest, who are at the edge of having to leave our town because they're overhoused and don't have enough income.
But also,
It's to create a safety
Yeah,
net.
no, I understand the intent, but I was just, only because I was just curious about just, if you didn't meet the 10 years, if you're going to end up hurting some percentage, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, we won't
If
know.
we had any idea.
Yeah, we won't know until the first
Yeah,
year.
okay.
Also, I think that during the presentation or a comment that was made at that June town meeting that the vast majority of seniors will also be contributing. The vast majority of seniors in North Reading nowhere near qualify for that. So meaning that it's kind of a paid to the side for the so it's not just those that can't be here for 10 years. The vast majority of seniors are way over, I don't want to use way, but over the income of it anyway, so.
I think Mr. Mackey's more concerned with the people who do need the help,
But can't get it.
but can't
Yes,
get it.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was curious about.
So,
course, they probably wouldn't have moved into our town if I knew our tax rate anyway. They probably would have gone elsewhere.
That's all. Mr. Gilbert, anybody else online?
I'm not seeing any requests to speak.
Does the board have any other comments? Colleagues? Okay. This time I will close this portion of the public meeting. So, Mr. Massey, do we have motions?
Yes.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I move to select a minimum residential factor of 1.0 as recommended by the Board of Assessors.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Massey, second by Mrs. Gonzalez. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Ole. Oh,
There's no thought by this board to, this might not be the right motion, but there's no thought by this board to even shift it 5%. Just to set some sort of precedence.
Shift 5% of what?
Shift from, I think you mean shift 5% from residential to commercial to CIP. That's his question. Anyone have a comment?
I mean, you could offer an amendment to do that and open it up for discussion if you want to do it.
This would be the,
Yeah, this would be the appropriate place to do it.
Mr. Chairman, I move to make an amendment to make a tax shift of 5% from residential to commercial, industrial, personal property.
I'll second for the purposes of discussion.
Okay. Amended motion by Mr. Massey, seconded by Mr. O'Leary. Discuss. Please.
I certainly think it's been one of the items that's been hanging over North Reading's head for quite some time. To show some sort of effort, I do know the residences and the people are certainly of the fact that they don't want to move out of this town, and I don't want them to move out of this town either. I don't think shifting a 5% burden is really going to hurt our commercial base. I don't think it'll hurt either one or the other, but I do think that we're showing some sort of progression on something that, in my opinion, won't impact the commercial tax base too much, while helping 88% of our revenue.
I mean, I will say, as someone who works for a small business in town, I know that the struggle is there. Not only do a lot of these small business owners own these businesses, but they also live in town, so they're paying the tax rate. They're also trying to keep their business going.
That's the risk you take by opening a business. I mean, you're making money compared to a house that's not making money. That's all. I can't get over that fact. And that gentleman, when you talked about the coffee, is really has been my opinion for a long, long time.
I just know for where I work, a lot of seniors come in to where I work. And if the tax rate goes up on the business, the prices go up on the business, and they're going to be affected by that. They're going to have to pay that extra burden. It's too small of a commercial business town for me to go along with that. Too many small businesses.
Mr. Wallen?
Yeah, I mean, all I have to do is look down Main Street and see how many businesses have closed and continue to close, and we have empty storefronts. The trend is not going the way of us having more businesses. We're having less. So adding on an extra tax burden for the small amount of money we're talking about is just, would be symbolic at best, but it's not practical. It's the wrong message being brought out to businesses. We should be trying to encourage them to welcome them in, and right now having a unified tax rate makes the most sense.
Mr. O'Leary?
One of the, just a note here, but one of the arguments that has been put forth by the commercial property owners and businesses in the community over the years to maintain this level of taxation is to don't underestimate and don't underappreciate the role that the small businesses, which are primarily what we have here in North Reading, mom and pop operations, what they do in the way of contributions to support this community, whether it be to local organizations, fundraising efforts. It's significant, and they were always preaching to us that any shift in the burden at this particular point in time would have an impact on their ability to continue to contribute. And it wasn't in a threatening way either. They just said, please don't forget, that as the school and other social organizations and faith-based organizations in the community try and raise funds for their causes, it's the local businesses that generally are the ones that support them, and they would like to continue to do so. And the significance of it from a dollars and cents point may not be much. And when you think about it, with a 90-10 split or thereabouts, what can you save the average homeowner at 5%? $40 a month, and it's going to cost the average commercial property, assessed value commercial property, probably 75. You're going to save someone 45 and charge them $75 to $100 more a month in real estate taxes, and still expect them to contribute to the local community and support local organizations. So with the 90-10 or an 11% split, it's difficult, and it is impactful. And to the assessor's point earlier, some of these assessed valuations are significantly skewed by the River Park 93s and the Walmart lots and the Stop and Shop. Our community is made up of small commercial properties owned by mostly a lot of local business people, and it's a significant impact, and it's a message that we're not necessarily looking to send, I don't think, at this time. But I appreciate it, and that's why I seconded the motion. I think it should go to discussion, and I appreciate you bringing it up. But I don't think the time is now. And again, I've been sitting here a long time, and I haven't found the time to be right yet. And again, until we get some investment in the community that allows for significant new growth, it's a tough decision. So what's fair is, if everybody pays an equal tax rate, there's nothing unfair about that. And until we get a commercial tax base that is significantly more than what we have now, it's hard to consider it fair and sustainable to do it. So, but I appreciate the opportunity to have the discussion.
I just had a resident, ask me a question, so I'm going to pass it on to you. They are wondering if the businesses can be charged differently depending on. Did you ask? Is that what you were asking earlier?
Depending on use?
They're saying like under $1 million and over 100,000, so that Walmart could pay a little more.
No, if you shift the rate, it has to go across the board to all properties under the CIP. You can't choose like from a valuation standpoint and say, okay, if you're over $1 million, we're going to charge you that 10%. Under $1 million, you're going to stay at the same rate as the residential.
It can't be done.
No, statutorily, I can't do that.
So, I agree. How's it? Go ahead.
Sorry, but there is an option that's available. It's just very limited, right? It's the small business.
On the commercial exemption,
Yeah.
but
Two
our,
properties.
Right.
right.
So the option that is available, unfortunately, is limited to 2 eligible properties.
Because they have to have fewer than 10 employees, and they have to be valued under $1 million. Those are the two qualifications for the commercial exemption. So how many businesses have fewer than 10 employees? And there's 2 under $1 million. So There's only 2 that would qualify for that, if you were to adopt the commercial exemption.
Mr. Chairman, the other point to make is that we have a lot of local businesses that are tenants.
Yeah,
A lot of their
just
leases
say.
are triple net leases, so that the ones that you're actually impacting more significantly are the local businesses, not the property owners, because they just pass the cost off to their tenants. A lot of the leases, business leases, are triple net, so that if their taxes go up, they pay it. You know, the tenants pay it. And then the property owners then pass it on to us. So that was has always been a significant argument put forth by the local business community, that while they may not be property owners themselves, they're directly impacted by a vote such as this because of their lease agreements. And
So-
asked us to consider that too.
Okay. Well, here's all that. I agree with in principle what Mr. Massey said. I also agree on the fact that when you do business here, I mean, it is a risk. One of the risks is that if you don't own the property, anything could happen, right? You know, you can pass on costs when the lease is up, and that's just the way it is. That's why, you know, if you notice, so some of the most successful business owners in the state, they have a concentrated real estate position and a lot of their businesses. So guess what? When they raise the cost, they also get more of a deduction because they're the same person. But I do think that maybe projecting that this is something that, and again, who knows what the makeup of future boards are, but that's where I would look at it, that maybe it's something that it is being considered, not to be punitive, but more to be realistic, that and maybe what we have to work with in the future does have to be increased for a certain amount. But it's not a big surprise versus where more likely than not, and maybe it was it's an assumption, we didn't get many people here from the business community because they didn't think, there would be a shot that would happen. And in theory, it is true. I'm not inclined to support that at the moment. But I do think that it is important that if we're going to stick to this spread, which seems to be the norm now for a very, very long time, then maybe you just have to make the difficult decision at some point. I don't think the timing is appropriate now. I do think that we have challenges, as we have mentioned, but I'm just not in favor of that. So what we can do is, are our options to vote, or Mr. Massey can withdraw the motion, or I don't really know. Would you like a vote?
Mr. Chair, I will withdraw the motion.
I will withdraw my second.
Okay, so now
Then
we're
comes
back.
back.
So now we're back.
To the original.
We're back to the original. So on that one, any further discussion? Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Wallner?
Aye.
Mr. Massey?
Aye.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Aye.
The chair is aye. Good talk. You can just keep going, Mr. Massey.
Mr. Chairman, I move not to establish a residential exception.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Massey, second by Mr. Wallner. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Massey?
Aye.
Mr. Wallner?
Aye.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Chair is aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move not to establish a commercial exemption.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Massey, second by Mr. Wallner. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Wallner?
Aye.
Mr. Massey?
Aye.
Mrs. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Chair is aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move not to establish an open space exemption.
You sound like Batman.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Massey, second by Mr. Wallner. Everybody's waiting to say second. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Who was that seconded by?
Mr. Wallner. Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Wallner?
Aye.
Mr. Massey?
Aye.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Aye.
The chair is aye.
It's the most seconds I've done all year long.
Thank you.
I know what you're snoozing over there. Fall
I
asleep.
think we still have,
Another one.
No, not to you. I said thank you to her. Like, we're not leaving. We're never
Oh,
going.
we got a
He's got
couple
another
more.
one.
Two more
For
motions.
this?
See another
Two
one.
more motions.
Couple more.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
I
thank
move
you.
to recommend the fiscal year 2025 property tax levy at $64,881,345, which is $36,089.90 less than the levy limit.
Second.
Okay, I'm just gonna toss up there. Motion by Mr. Massey, second by Mr. O'Leary. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just to, what's the, just trying to clarify, property tax levy at blank, which is less than the levy limit. What does that mean to go under the levy limit?
So here's where I always remind you is nothing is certified yet, so that number does have potential of changing a little bit once all of the recap documents are submitted to the Department of Revenue. So what happens, to answer your question, Nick, we have the levy limit, so we have spent up to less that 36, whatever it is.
Means you're not taxing
So
to the max.
we're not, we're below by 36,000. So, but again, we haven't submitted everything, and usually it stays, but for the sake of being transparent, I always say at the end of the meeting, you know, that is not certified as yet.
Does that extra $36,000 become, where does it go? The cash?
It stays in the levy, but for the reason we're slightly below the levy limit is the rounding. Like if you go 1307, you're over the levy limit, and you go 1306, you're slightly under it, you can't go half a cent. So it's just the way the math works.
Okay, no further questions.
If someone asks, you always tax to the max, that's not true.
See, we always have something.
Any further discussion? Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Wallner?
Aye.
Mr. Massey?
Aye.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Chair is aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend to the Board of Assessors that the fiscal year 2025 proposed tax rate be set at $13.06 per $1,000 of valuation.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Massey, second by Mr. O'Leary. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Wallner?
Aye.
Mr. Massey?
Aye.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Chair is aye. Now, thank you.
Thank you.
Another year under your belt. Well done.
Thank you. Mike, I'll put this one back in. And just a reminder to my income generating properties, get those I&Es in by Monday.
I think it's a good idea to suggest to our
Yeah.
legislators to raise that limit.
I wrote it down. Yeah, we're going to do that.
So again, maybe we just want to, Mr. Chairman, you might want to seek some guidance from your colleagues here and say, do we want to petition our legislators to raise the penalty limits above $250 again?
How do we do a petition? If it's,
Well, just-
like, we just write a letter? If it's
So just
voted
say-
on?
Just go through the tax classification hearing, we understand that, people who aren't complying with the reporting are only fined $250. We don't think that that's a significant enough incentive for them to comply, and that the limit should be raised to some other number substantially more than what the current law allows.
What's your thought?
Little economy to scale, I mean, $250 to a business.
Oh, yeah,
It's like nothing.
As soon as I heard that, I was like,
Yeah,
what?
it's not.
Look at it.
And that's why we have a lot of property owners who just say,
I'll pay the
$250.
fee.
I mean, so what's the number?
I would say at least 4 times the existing.
I'd say at least 1,000.
1,000 is, yeah, I mean, that's a nice round number for it, without being too, yeah.
Yeah, it should be at least $1,000, and it's an incentive for some of them to come into compliance.
I could believe it.
And again, Mr. Chairman, I think it should be just done under the vote of the board and the signature of the chair to our state senator or our state representative and ask them to do something.
Michael's
I
looking.
can't do it right now, I know that.
No.
I think we put it on the agenda and have the board vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Authorize that. So, just so there's no question that it's done.
Okay, yeah.
We could put it on the next agenda, we could have a draft.
And also, if between then and now, anybody has a different number they want to toss up, we can do it at that point. Maybe we can find out too what other,
That's what I was just gonna say.
Well, no, this is statutory, that's the limit.
That's
Yeah,
a
I believe
state limit.
It's state law.
but is there anybody else that's also asked for,
Oh, for relief.
Right.
I mean, I'd be shocked if Boston's at 250.
I think we should just blaze the trail here.
And they charge them 50 if you like to get to pay the meter.
Yeah, like Boston businesses, like they would just be like, I'll never fill this out. So, I don't understand that either. That doesn't make any sense to me. Should be.
All right. Oh.
There's got to be more to this story than we know.
Right.
There's a strong lobby out there.
Mr. Gilberto, what do we got next?
Next agenda item was relative to American Rescue Plan Act funds. This is a follow-up to conversations that we've had at some board meetings, and I believe also referenced at town meeting. There are 3 projects that were previously authorized by the board to be funded with ARPA funding, and for 3 different reasons, we don't necessarily have a need or recommend utilizing the ARPA funding. So the first is the Concord and Main Street connection to Greater Lawrence Sanitary District sewer project, which the board voted to terminate planning activities for, I believe, back in May. In doing so, we had a $500,000 allocation that the select board had approved back in September of 2023 that we no longer forecasted we would be spending with those planning activities having been terminated. And so that frees those funds up sort of late in the proverbial game for the use of ARPA funds, with the deadline to obligate the funds being December 30th of this year and the deadline to spend the funds being December 30th of 2026. So with that project now being terminated, those funds are available, and we're recommending that we rescind that authorization. To be clear, what would happen is those funds would be, as allowed by the federal and state government, in the Department of Revenue and the Department of the Treasury, those funds would be available to be basically counted as a revenue source in fiscal year 2025, and they would become available as free cash certified roughly October 1st of next year, at the end of the closeout of that year, and would then be available for town meeting to approve use for really any purpose at that point. So that first is the $500,000 that we will not be spending for the planning for the wastewater project that the board's voted to terminate. The second, because of the vote to terminate the planning activities, it freed up funding. Sorry, I take that back. I'm sorry. The second is the downtown sewer project. Because we're not proceeding with the large Main Street, Concord Street wastewater planning project, we had a significant grant. It was $1.5 million from the Environmental Protection Agency that we got with the assistance of our federal congressional delegation. Again, it was for design work, final design of the Main and Concord Street project to connect to Greater Lawrence Sanitary District. We're not doing that project. Somewhat surprisingly, and while it's not been officially approved, it's been forwarded for approval with a package of a number of other projects nationwide to be allowed to be reallocated for really any wastewater or water project from the correspondence I saw today. So that really opens up what the use is, but we've recommended that ultimately it be moved forward to become free cash in a year from now. And town meeting in October sort of forward funded the downtown sewer project with an approval of some existing available funds and free cash in the total that was required. And then the third, again, a different scenario, the Park Street Bridge. We were forecasting that would be a $1.9 million project with $1.4 million of it being ARPA funding. It was the first, I think, project we were talking about using ARPA for, going back 2 years. The bidding came in somewhat favorable. The challenge with that is we couldn't really identify a sufficient dollar amount and reliably be able to say we would definitively contract for that amount. So again, we were able to find other funding sources at October town meeting to fund the Park Street Bridge project. We're recommending that these funds also be reallocated into the fiscal year 2025 budget. To be very clear, there is a statement here indicating that they will go towards line 33, employee benefits, which is an allowable use, but we already have a factor in in a balanced budget that does not rely on these funds. So what will end up happening is they will effectively free up $3.5 million in other funding that will become free cash. And to be clear, will be available to the town to use as soon as next October's town meeting for any purpose. I would guess we're probably going to get guidance to look towards capital for the use for that project, for those funds, but it will make these funds available. We have reviewed these intentions with our representative from the Department of Revenue. We have to check in with the Division of Local Services, and they have all but signed off on it. They don't actually sign off on it until hopefully later this week, right? The federal government has issued guidance that states that because our allocation of ARPA funds was less than $10 million, we are able to take this step at this point in time. And we have also talked with Clifton Larson Anderson, who sort of they occasionally advise us on accounting matters and state law. Probably the most important thing I can say is this is the best way to preserve these funds to be available for future use, be it for whether it be for a project that we would otherwise have to have borrowed for, or some other purpose. This step is what will make these funds available. To be clear, calculating free cash every year, there are a number of variables that go into calculating that number, including other revenue in excess of what we projected, and departmental turnbacks that might be more or less than they are in a given year. So there's other things that will go into that free cash in a year from now, but this would also be a factor, and it's the best way we've identified to protect these funds so they're not clawed back by the federal government or otherwise not available, and can be used to serve the town's purposes at a future date. Again, subject to town meeting. I know that was a long explanation. I think we've been talking about ARPA a lot, but hopefully everyone sort of understands where we're at, and I think Lori and I both are happy to answer any questions that folks might have.
Questions?
Just to clarify, if we don't do that, if we don't put that ARPA money into free cash, we lose it, correct?
Correct. We don't have it obligated under a contract by December 30th of this year. So not just a vote, but we actually have a document that says we're going to spend it paying a particular vendor for a particular purpose. In the absence of that, the federal government's able to claw the money back.
And this can't be used for operating budget?
So there are limitations. It can't be used for debt service.
Retirements.
For retirements. It can be used for, and they advise that we look at a large appropriation because it would be easy to report, and health insurance is an eligible use. That's why we're referring to.
See what the motion's going to be? Just the allocated employee benefits health insurance, which covers it all. And then that frees up cash that we've already appropriated for other purposes. We convert it to free cash later on.
I just want to make sure it doesn't get lost in the sauce, right?
Yeah.
And they further recommended to actually completely meet the definition of obligated, that it's spent. So health insurance, we will have spent the $3.5 million by December.
Okay, gotcha.
How quickly can it be used?
That's what it's on,
Next October.
yeah.
So it will technically be used.
I'm just asking.
To be clear, the ARPA funding will technically get used by December 30th of this year, right? We're going to pay health insurance expenses with it. What it will do is free up that same amount of money in other revenue sources that would become available, we expect, for next October's town meeting. So that same amount of funds.
Once free cash is certified.
Once free cash is certified.
Okay, so that's what we have to wait for.
Correct.
That was the question.
If we could have used it in advance, we would have done so at October town meeting for a number of purposes that we talked about needing to identify funding sources. And in one case, I think we presented that we were sort of forward funding it with free cash, knowing that this would become available a year from now.
Just one more question. Will it always be known as, I mean, even though it's going to be in this bucket and everything, will we refer to it in the future as ARPA funds?
Yes, and in fact, it will be audited as federal funds.
Okay.
It will be subject to the single audit and audited that way. That's why we have to show, we had to name what we were going to spend it on, and then we will have to actually show the expenditures to the auditors.
So I think the question is, once free cash is certified,
Right.
what happens?
Oh, no, it would be known as free cash at that point. Once it's certified.
I just want to make sure internally we always refer to that money, because I think of ARPA money as a lot different than free cash.
Sure, so
right? So I just want to be sure that we don't lose track of that over
I
2,
agree.
3 years, 4 years, whatever
Yeah.
happens.
So what I would,
Buckets pulled the ARPA.
If I'm still breathing, I won't forget.
You know what I'm saying? I just don't want to see it just get lost in the sauce.
No, I think we all agree
Yeah.
with that. It's very important to us that ARPA money be used
Be
for
put to the
things-
uses that it was intended.
We had other things that we didn't do
Right.
because we chose other, we'd like to
Right.
see maybe those other projects.
Right, well, that's what we did with the middle school, high school settlement funds. We kept track of it and made sure we put it in a fund, the same
Yeah.
with the opioid settlement.
Can we do that?
We internally track it, and then I'd set aside that free cash, provided there's other free cash beyond that we track probably for capital.
I know Mrs. Minnie-Pelli, when she was here, that was a big thing for her. She did not want that being used, thrown into the pot
Right.
with everything else.
I think there was unanimity on that.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to just throw it in
No,
the pot.
Right.
but she was very adamant, very vocal about it, and I have her in my head.
so in order for it to become available, it does first have to go into the pot. It's up to us to move the money,
Yeah.
presumably very quickly, somewhere else. And so a sort of default step could be moving it into the capital improvement stabilization fund. So now it's in a stabilization fund, it's subject to a 2/3 vote before it gets expended. We could look into setting up a separate type of fund that would maybe isolate it from the capital improvement stabilization fund. That's another alternative. I know we couldn't put it directly in there, but I would imagine at this point, once it's free cash,
Right, once it's free cash, you can.
we could create something that is different than capital improvement stabilization. But to be clear, it has to go in the pot first, and then we have to move the money, presumably at that October town meeting at that point in time.
Because there were definitely projects that we
Yeah.
were focused on that we knew would never get funded otherwise, so it would be nice to reflect back on those.
Yep.
Avoid some future debt exclusions or otherwise.
Anything else? Mr. Massey, can I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move to rescind American Rescue Plan Act allocations for the following projects. Wastewater system design for $500,000. Downtown sewer for $1,640,208.89. And the Park Street Bridge construction, $1.4 million. And to allocate and obligate $3,540,208.89 to fiscal year 2025 operating budget, line 33, employee benefits and health insurance.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Massey, second by Mr. O'Leary. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Wallner?
Aye.
Mr. Massey?
Aye.
Mrs. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Chair is aye.
Just to go back, I just want to note our appreciation for the finance director, town administrator, for coming up with a solution to ensure that we don't lose any of these funds and that they remain available to the community, even if we have to wait a year.
Right.
It's worth the wait. So again, I appreciate your efforts and your insight and your looking into it and your conversations, many conversations. It's greatly appreciated and duly noted in all of our minds, I'm sure.
Mr. Chairman, through you, the next item, memorandum of agreement for with the North Reading Firefighters Local 1857. This would be a vote to ratify and sign the memorandum of agreement. It's listed on the agenda as also for an integrated contract. To be clear, I think this evening's vote is proposed only to be for the memorandum of agreement. I think there's still some language to be worked on with regard to an integrated contract. Excuse me. I'll just briefly summarize the collective bargaining agreement. It would cover fiscal years 25, 26, and 27, with the most recent contract having expired on June 30th of 2024. It does focus on the wage structure that we have followed with other units at across the board cost of living adjustments of 3.5%, 3%, and 3% over the 3 fiscal years. However, there are adjustments in the compensation rate for paramedics, which is our target candidate pool for hiring North Reading firefighters, even though there have been instances in recent years where we've not been able to do so. It does include changes to the way staff are able to be deployed in anticipation of adding to our on-duty complement of firefighters from the current 4 + 1 on the desk going to a minimum of 6 going out the door, and our dispatching being done by regional dispatch, and a long-term goal of growing that number from 6 to 7 to 8 personnel. It does include creating the rank of lieutenant, which is something that was identified as important in the structure of potentially seeing that on-duty crew of at least 6 being split in responding to two separate events at the same point in time. So it does include that, and it does also include changes in the way overtime shifts are filled once the rank of lieutenant is filled, which we expect to be in the middle portion of fiscal year 2026. So because of those adjustments in the way overtime is filled, there is also an adjustment in the rate of pay for the rank of captain at that same point in time to reflect lost overtime opportunity. So I think I hit most of the major points in that summary for folks. Again, the board is asked to ratify and sign the agreement.
Mr. Massey, can I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move to ratify and sign a memorandum of agreement between the town of North Reading and North Reading firefighters local 1857 for the period of July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Massey, second by Mr. O'Leary. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman. Just several comments in relation to negotiations, the contract that's been signed, the commitment that this board has made and town meeting has made in relation to maintaining and growing the fire department. We have a substantial growing need to maintain a good fire force for public safety purposes as the town grows and as the demands increase, as we've seen the number of ambulance calls and other firefighting calls that have taken place over the last several years. Every budgetary season we get the numbers from the chief. There's a substantial increase in activity. Even with all of the budgetary constraints that we're facing, this board made a conscious decision in the administration to make a commitment to maintain and grow the fire department in order to meet the public safety needs. In order to do that well, we needed the cooperation of the union through the negotiations to set us up for success rather than continue on with our past practices, which were not necessarily the most cost-effective way to operate the system. So I just want to acknowledge the many months of negotiations which took place. It was extremely congenial and professional on the part of both sides of the negotiating teams, which is our team and then the firefighters union, in order to achieve what we're asking you to ratify tonight. Matt Carroll, Mike Tanyan, John Burt from the firefighters union did yeoman's work as far as working with us to work out the details of this contract and the changes in practices which are necessary to move us forward and grow some more. And again, the community needs to know that this is a first step. And as far as putting on the firefighters, the 4 firefighters, we need more firefighters moving forward, and we'll be asking for appropriations at our next town meeting probably to increase the workforce. This contract sets us up for success as far as managing it most efficiently and making sure that we have adequate response from an adequate number of firefighters to meet our public safety needs. And the town administrator, Chief Stats, Mr. Wallner, Bob Collins, the finance director, worked very hard over several months to get this to come to fruition. And just just want to acknowledge the effort that was put in by both our side, our team, but also, more importantly, the union and their efforts to get this across the finish line for us. So it's a testament to their commitment. They recognize the commitment that the board has made and town meeting has made to the fire department. They appreciate that, and they've worked very hard to come up with a structure that's going to work for us moving forward. So I want to acknowledge that publicly. Thank them very much for working with us to get to this point, and look forward to successfully meeting the public safety needs of the community, and this is a big step forward. So I would urge my colleagues to support.
Copy paste everything Mr. O'Leary just said for me. Mr. Walner.
It's just that the fundamental problem is we have a lot of firefighters who live outside of our community, so to get them to come back in is very difficult. It's been hard to get full staff whenever you have an emergency. So by doing this, by increasing our staff, we're able to reduce our overtime and then have better service at the same time. So that's
it also makes our community more
attractive
to get good candidates. Again, there's an awful lot of competition out there in order to fill the firefighting forces, and the union recognizes it, we recognize it, and this helps significantly.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Massey? Okay. Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Wallner?
Aye.
Mr. Massey?
Aye.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Chair is aye.
Big Matt Carroll is on.
Yeah,
To Matt, to you and your negotiating team, thank you very much. And I don't know if Matt has any comments. No, I don't know if Matt has any comments or not, Mr. Chairman. I said I don't know if Matt, who's president of the union, has any comments. I know he's online.
Mr. Carroll, would you like to speak?
He wrote a message in the chat. Please share our thanks to you and the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, he is asking if he could speak.
Oh.
So hold on, Matt. Let me see if I can help you with that. Oh, okay. Can you unmute yourself? You may be able to. If you can't, let me see if I can help you. Try that.
There he is.
There we go.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Mr. Roberto. I'll echo Mr. O'Leary's statements. I agree with him and Mr. Wallner. This is a great step forward for our members, and I just want to take the brief opportunity to thank the town, their team, for, like Mr. O'Leary said, productive looking towards the future of what we need as a department to meet the needs of the community, and we think this is a great step forward. We look forward to continuing this relationship with the town and meeting the challenges that we face every day when it comes to recruitment, hiring, staffing, being able to meet the needs of the town at any moment's notice. And I think this future contract is the best step forward for us, and I know our members are very appreciative of the time and commitment from the town side. We get it as a negotiating team. We can thank many of our members for working this deal, and they feel that, again, it's the right step forward for everybody involved. So I just want to say thank you to everybody, and I won't take any more of your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. And
thank you.
To you and your fellow firefighters, thank you for your efforts over the last few weeks, too. I know there's been a challenge with what's happening in Middleton and Wilmington. And thank you for meeting the call once again.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Okay. Meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the regular session minutes for the October 21, 2024 meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Massey, second by Mr. O'Leary. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just want my colleagues to understand one thing. The reason why I made some edits here is if I'm going to be someone who's solely voting another way from my colleagues, I just wanted my reasoning to be in the minutes as to why I disagree.
Mr. Wallner.
So this is just, I'm going to express what I kind of said last time, which is that you know, there's a process we go through when we make these meeting minutes. It's recorded by our secretary as she's heard it. Then we have the option to edit it. And then we always have NORCAM as a backup. So I think we should actually just disclose that at the beginning of the minutes so that people are reading through this. They can see that this is how it happens. This is the first step. The second step, then maybe, and what I'm seeing is the edits are in here, but I think when you finalize this, you accept everything as is, so you can't tell the difference between that which was edited versus that which was original. Am I right when I say that? Jennifer?
Yeah.
Is that true?
They're finalized.
By the time it's finalized, it
a
always
clean
is the
copy.
same. I think there should be some distinguishing, saying that this was the original recording minutes, and maybe in a different font or a different color. These are edited. You know, we have the option to edit, which I don't. If you want to edit, it's fine. But that if there's any question about what happened, go to NORCAM and listen to it.
I have added that several months ago. It's at the end of the minutes. There's the link for NORCAM.
Is it on here?
It's on every minute. It's been on there for about at least 5 months. I've added it to the bottom of every open session minutes. Full link to NORCAM.
Then I've missed that. Can you just, can anybody point to it on the thing?
Okay.
Can you point to it on the?
I'm scrolling through right now.
I'm just trying to, it's great if you did that. That's great. I mean, I'm sure you did. I just want to see it.
While you do that too, we'll see that, and I know Mr. Matt gave some suggestions that we're looking at, but hopefully, maybe we can use some 2024 technology to try to make it a little easier for everyone, where then it's kind of, you know, like everything else in life, we leave it to the machines, which is
62.
Bad and good.
62?
Page 62.
But,
Thank you.
to try to make it so it's kind of.
Oh, so I see the full recording. Can I just ask for 2 sentences before that? Just saying, you know, the original transcript was as recorded by you. The above was edited, which is in yellow font or whatever you want to put down to highlight it, and then a final full recording of the meeting can be found here. So just 3 steps.
Well, the font change doesn't end up in the final minutes, correct?
No, right now it doesn't.
No.
I'm suggesting make it different. Make it look different, so that way you can see it.
Yeah, correct.
To be frank, I don't know what's going on, but there's been other board members for years that have done this, and you guys haven't said, Pete, I come in, and I think this is long to be, I'm sorry, but you probably said it every meeting for my changes. If you have an exception, say it to the group, say what you think I might have put in there that isn't correct, and I'm happy to share it on this big screen, because I tell you right now, my edits, I watch the entire video of the meeting, and I make sure the things that I say that I want to be in the meeting minutes are in the meeting minutes.
Okay, I don't want to go through that kind of work to verify it. I'm not even
Well,
criticizing
that's
anybody.
why I do that.
Anybody who has an edit. Anybody who has an edit.
And if you
I'm just
want to
saying-
disprove me,
Excuse me.
then please make a motion.
I'm not
Do
even.
it. I'm happy to prove
I'm not
it.
even talking about disproving you or approving you. What
Well,
I'm
it's all-
talking about.
It's clearly, because I'm the only one.
Can I please just
Mr. Chair, I'm the only one making edits. This is clearly a
Well,
direct attack.
here, hold on. I don't.
In my
Okay,
opinion,
let
it's
me,
a
wait,
sensible-
let me reel it back. Great meeting, we're not gonna go off the rails on these minutes.
I'm with you. I
Okay,
me too.
I mean, no, I mean, because I'm stopping the tracks. So, anyone can make their edits. I do agree, like we've done it before, Mr. Wallner, like, and I think you're both kind of saying the same thing, but a little different, that if there is an issue, they need to be brought up when we vote for them. Once we vote for them, they are what they are, with the disclosure that if you want another verification to what you made, and I think what we left it on, and I'm going to take this as the last question, and then we can still comment about it, but it's going to be on something else about the minutes. Can there be, does it have to be a singular font and format?
It doesn't have to be. I think there should be, if you're
Okay.
asking my opinion.
So if that's the recommendation that it should be, then, you know, Mr. Wallner, I think that,
And I'll just say, I'm saying that because if we have the discussion about the changes, then it's memorialized in a set of minutes. It's going to generally be the meeting minutes after the meeting that was in question, right? You follow me? So we could handle them, I mean, and there was a point in time when the minutes were only edited on the floor of the meeting, right?
so what we're going to do in 2 weeks is, we're going to go through this,
You two are gonna say the same thing again, and then we're gonna go through it 2 weeks again more. You know, I'm just making a joke, I'm just trying to put the point that like, you are correct, like, hey, it's kind of, these are gonna be in the minutes, that we have this discussion about the minutes. That's the point you're trying to make?
I am, yeah. I mean, again, whatever the board's pleasure is, but I think the idea, though, is ultimately that to be a uniform.
So.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
If somebody makes an edit, it has to be factual, correct? I mean, if I say, I didn't say this, I said
Well,
this.
that's actually conflicting information in what I was told maybe 2 months ago, that it was being verified. We, again, don't need to go into
Anyway,
comments.
so if I say I said this, but you go back to NORCAM and I didn't say that, then is that gonna still be, my edit gets accepted?
Mr. Gilberto?
So the edits happen in 2 ways, well, actually 3 ways. We send them out. Sometimes they're sent back with the edits written right into them.
Yeah.
I think some of you have done that. Sometimes we get a response that says, at this point in time I said this, or at this point in time someone else said that, and we incorporate it into it. Or the third alternative is somebody says, that doesn't look like it's accurate, can you check the videotape? And so we go and we check it, we try to transcribe it and put it as best as we can. So it depending upon what's asked of us or what's given to us, we may react differently to it.
I guess
But I will
my
say,
question is, if what I'm trying to edit is absolutely not true, what happens then?
We don't generally filter it.
If I may, I just...
So if it's been edited
verified.
and it's there, then it's probably how it should be.
Hold on, I'm gonna make one suggestion. Can we, I mean, I know that not everyone is in this type of mode, but can we trust that as respect to each other, as colleagues here, that we're not going to put something that is, you know, blatantly wrong, like, you know, Mr. Studo doesn't use sarcasm. Like, I mean, I'm just trying to say that I think that no one, I don't feel anyone on this board will literally make edits that are not true. Maybe I'm just too trusting in that. So I think, and that's how we have operated since I got on the board, where if somebody did it, I never, you know, there wasn't all this. So that is true. And we did have someone who was a stickler for edits, even more than Mr. Massey by a lot, by the way. So I will, so I think that if we can just operate under that assumption, as hard as sometimes it can be, and then if we really feel, you know, the only remedy can be if we really disagree, it's that we wind up the tape during this discussion, and we can all sit here for another hour as I boil like a raspberry while we look through meeting video. So that's what I'm saying. Can we just trust each other on that and move on? Because I feel like we spend way too much time as a board on minutes. Way too much time.
Mr. Sue, I agree with just as far as my character goes, if someone here is going to say that something I put in the minutes is not true, I will ask you guys to put that video on to prove to me that what I'm doing is not true. Just saying.
That's not my point.
I take kind of this serious because it sounds like you're trying to censor me.
It's not my point.
Kate did this for years.
Can I make my point one more time? It's not about that. It's about for anybody else who reads it. I just want them to understand the process of what we do. So even you asked the question, like, how does that happen? I just want to be very transparent. Here's the minutes. Here's how we process it. And NORCAM is our bottom line. That's all I want. I just want disclosure. You can edit any way you want. I don't really care because I'm not going to go back and check. It's not really up to me to do that. But I do want to be really clear that editing is kind of freeform. You get to do what you want, and no one's verifying it.
Which is
so that's anybody. For
Mr. Warner, which is something you got. You asked for that NORCAM link to be on the bottom. That came from you, and you got it.
But there should be 2 other steps before that.
You know,
I'm asking for full disclosure. That's all.
It is, well, it is there if the link is there, but, okay.
all about transparency.
So, hold on. Any new points? It's new? New? Okay. I just want to make sure it's new.
New.
One point, go ahead.
By the way, this isn't new. You know, this is not new as far as, you know, 1 member or 2 members or all 5 members having some sort of suggestions as far as edits over the years as far as the minutes go. as evidenced by the fact that some of the minutes were held up for months in order to ensure that everybody felt comfortable with what was being
Not
done.
anymore.
But being, to the point of, once the motion is made and the minutes are accepted, those are the actual minutes of the meeting, because the majority of the board accepted the minutes and minutes in it. So I don't think there needs to be an italicized or a highlighted section because some board member made a suggestion of an edit. Either the majority of the board accepts it or they don't, you know. And when suggested edits are being made by members of this board, the key is that we as members, you know, take the time to review them on a timely basis, and if we disagree with what's being suggested along the way, whether it's an edit that I make or Mr. Massey or yourself or anybody makes, and there have been times in the past when I have taken exception to edits that were suggested by other members of the board, and we hashed it out, you know, or made additional edits to make the point that other members of the board wanted to make. So the process is, our recording secretary does a wonderful job here. It forwards us a set of minutes for review. And then individually we take a look at them and we either say, yep, it's good enough for me, or this needs to be included, I think it was an important point, or that's not totally accurate. And there's the edits and there's the suggested edits. We all get to see that before it's voted on. And if we want to editorialize or edit ourselves even further, then yeah, we can go back and check it. And again, to me, I think it's a waste of time. And I think it's an unnecessary amount of time that needs to, we could be spending our time on more important things. So we're all in agreement on that. So to me, once we take a vote, those are the minutes that have been accepted by the majority of the board. As far as verification, I would hope that individual members here, myself included, if I'm going to suggest an edit, that it's factual and it's accurate. And we shouldn't have to be spending our time or the administration's time, or Jed's time, or anybody else's time to have to go back to NORCAM and look at it again to verify what we're saying is true or not true. Some of us may not be comfortable, but we'll go back and check it ourselves. If I'm not that comfortable with what's being suggested as an edit, I'm going to go back and take a look at it, and I'm going to push the pause button and say, don't vote on these this time, because I don't want to have this public discussion about it. I want to get it fixed before it comes out here, and then vote on our minutes, we're all in agreement, and be done with it.
Well,
So,
I trust that Mr. Massey, what he's putting down is true. Also, I think the one advantage of voting on them, and granted, we go through a lot in 2 weeks, that if something's blatantly like out there, you'll probably recognize it, right? It's only been a couple of weeks. So I've always operated like that for every board member, although it was everybody the same except Mr. Massey, that's here you. So that's how I've always operated, and until I see something different. So anyone else before we take the vote on this?
but I just want to say, if I have a strong feeling as far as a suggested edit, I'm going to express my opinion before it gets here. And I'm going to do it through the administration, not necessarily the individual board members. And then, or we push the pause button until it gets cleared up, or we agree.
Take it easy on the pause.
Well, no. I mean, we've gotten in trouble as far as the pause because we haven't been keeping up with it. You know, but the thing is, you know, it's important that they're also accurate too. So if we need to push the pause button, we should. But it shouldn't be a 6-month pause. You know, it shouldn't have to be a 6-month pause or a 2-month pause. It might be a 2-meeting pause. But
Mr. Massey?
Just want to clarify, obviously it's truly, Jen is fantastic, and it has nothing to do with it. This is more me being more my comments, and the reason why I may vote one way or another to be documented, really how it was said. So I know you understand that. And not just that, but I actually think since I've been elected, this process has changed. When now we do get these minutes put in front of all your desks, it does highlight the edits that are changed right there for you to review while we go to them. So thank you, Mrs. McKeown, it's been a great process.
You have it in front of you, they have it in the packet.
I have it in the packet.
You're the only one that gets a paper copy.
But they're seeing it electronically, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
they
we
can
still-
still.
Yeah, we have them. I looked at it though. I already read them.
Okay.
The chisel and the papers in the packet.
Yeah, no, I already read them. Any further discussion? Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Wallner?
Aye.
Mr. Massey?
Aye.
Mrs. Gonzalez?
Aye.
The chair is aye. Appointments.
Mr. Chairman, I move to place in nomination the following name for appointment to the Martins Pond Reclamation Study Committee for terms to expire December 31st, 2026. And this is a roll call for Julia M. Spruance.
What's the last name?
Spruance. S-P-R-U-A-N-C-E.
I think I put a French flair on it.
The, I can't really do it.
S-P-R-A-U-N-C.
S-P-R-U-A-N-C-E.
I'm stuck. No one seconded.
Second?
Oh, sorry. Motion by Mr. Massey, second by Mrs. Gonzalez. Liaison?
Yeah, it's great. We have a full, with Julia, we have a full group again, and so happy to have it. The Martins Pond Association is going to do a good job of taking care of the pond, and it will continue for years to come.
Any further discussion?
Yes, I bumped into the chairman at the recycling center when we were both dropping off leaves last week, and he said that the pond is in terrific shape, that
Good as it's ever been.
as good as it's ever been, and that the action that's been taken and the support that the board has shown and town meeting has shown is going a long way to maintaining this wonderful natural resource and making significant improvements. And again, I appreciate their efforts and look forward to supporting Julia Spruance and her efforts to augment the committee. But no, it's great to hear that the pond is doing much better. Yep.
Anyone else? Okay. Mr. O'Leary?
Julia Spruance.
Mr. Wallner?
Julia Spruance.
Mr. Massey?
Julia Spruance.
Mrs. Gonzalez?
Julia Spruance, I think we're saying it right.
Yep. And the chair is Julia Spruance. Town Administrator's Report.
Mr. Chairman, through you,
No, there's one. That's all we got.
did you have something? Just a friendly reminder that we have a couple of meetings scheduled for the board for next week. Tuesday, the 12th at 6:30 for interviews of Community Planning Commission candidates for their vacant position. I believe that's going to be in this room. So we will post a meeting for purposes of interviewing only, and my understanding is during that meeting there'll be a discussion about when we may potentially consider a joint appointment vote taking place.
So it's Tuesday the 12th?
Tuesday the 12th, correct. And then Wednesday the 13th, I believe we have identified as a date for a strategic planning meeting as well. We will confirm the location, but I believe that's going to be in the police department's training room. And if you have not heard already from Mrs. McNeil, we'll be reaching out for dinner orders. So just reminding folks of that. What's that?
Send you menus today.
I didn't say it.
Are you ordering from the shoot?
No, Mario's.
Oh.
We're going to order from Mario's this time, yeah.
All right, so this, I'm sorry, so this is the
Oh,
12th. 6:30 you said, I'm sorry?
12th at 6:30, and the 13th, I believe, we're going to try for 6 o'clock.
Yes, that's what I have.
Did you say there was an email you were supposed to respond to?
There was an email with the menu, I think, from Mario's.
It already went out? Today? Oh, I didn't think it was
Just Mario's just around.com.
I don't think they're
I don't think I got it.
Yeah, I think they do.
I can send the link. I can't send the link, actually. I can only tell you the link. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I have a paper, like a PDF. So
We'll get
you don't
to
have to go through the order.
We'll
right?
get to you, don't worry, we'll get your orders.
Could I ask, for the CPC meeting, are they going to have that on Zoom?
Are they what?
Is that going to be a Zoom?
I believe it could be. I haven't heard definitively one way or the other, but
Just because I'm in Duxbury that day, I'm not sure.
Why don't we do a hybrid?
Maybe here.
okay, I'll talk with
If we
Ms.
do a
McKnight about
hybrid, I
that.
can jump on.
Yeah.
And what's the format going to be? Is it going to be candidates coming in at individual times, or is everybody going to be sitting here at the same time? Do we know?
Do not know.
I think either way you can watch it live. Like if you were sitting out there, you'd be like, oh, it's not,
Yeah. So we're gonna have I don't know, what's usually the format here?
Usually we have candidates one at a time. We try to we generally would give you a framework of questions and ask you to consider asking each candidate the same questions with the exception of follow-ups, in fairness, but taking them one at a time. Yeah, but
But the
there's nothing
CPC
that,
takes the lead, correct? Online,
I mean,
last time that's how it worked.
Generally, yeah, generally.
So in 2020, I mean, I know it was different times, but
It would be a joint meeting, but
yeah. It was just a little different in 2020 because I think that they did the interviews, I was liaison, I came back to the board, told the board all about the interviews and what I thought, and then when the board voted, that's when the select board gave their questions.
Yeah, they
before the
weren't
vote.
there during the interviews.
Correct.
I was actually, but they weren't.
Yeah. Okay.
So in my experience, when we've had the joint meeting, the board members have been able to ask questions in the interviews. It's generally been dominated by planning commission members. We may have a couple of select board members there. We're going to post a meeting for you either way in case a quorum shows up so that you're able to participate. But again, my understanding is that it's not the intention to make the appointment that evening, but to do so at a future meeting.
And if we can do it hybrid.
I will talk to Ms. Midnight about that. I'm sure we can.
Okay, and can we find out exactly how the format's,
What
the intention is?
If anything changes, I'll let you know, but my understanding is that that's what the planner and I both expect to propose.
So like at times, so first, how many candidates?
I believe we have
Four.
Four.
Yeah.
And all these candidates get an email to invite?
They've already been emailed and invited for that night. I don't know they've been told an order yet.
The time slot?
Yeah, but we probably would allow them 30 to 45 minutes each, based on the number of, more so the number of us asking the questions than anything else.
If I may to this board, if interested, I think Mr. Ryan Carroll resigned on August 26th, maybe off a day. Today's November 4th. By the time we vote, November 12th, sorry, not vote, interview on November 12th. I'd hate to drag this out. I guess what I'm asking is, after the interviews, maybe not vote that night. But what I'd ask, we could vote that night. I think the interviews is really all we have to go off, and the resumes, which will be the package. But if not, I'd suggest maybe having a vote on the 18th at our select board meeting, regularly scheduled on the 18th.
I mean, it's also as long as the CPC is on board.
I'm just thinking shortly helping the CPC. If there's a vote that's a 2-2, it's going to stink, for them. And I think having 5 members is important for a town government job.
And this is for somebody to go all the way up until
Just
May,
May.
because then they have to be elected.
And just for
Then they have to rerun.
just for
So it's a
clarification,
5-month appointment.
it's going to be 9 votes voting.
Correct.
Okay.
5 plus
And
4.
each. Okay.
And if I may, Mr. Cooper, a suggestion that one of those questions would be is if you intend to run in May. I think, obviously, I think that's an important question to understand longevity, but.
And you can ask any follow-up.
Yeah,
That's
you
not,
can.
I mean, you can ask, that's actually a very good
It's a
question.
good question.
It is. When you're going to run again, I think they
I
say.
think it was
we'll see how-
advertised that,
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I think,
so I don't see any.
It's gonna be in my outbox though.
Okay.
This is like a really big
Let's
deal.
say something about Veterans Day.
So, we're all very worried about this thing.
I am very.
Well, it's not very often we get a meal paid for.
I know, we're very excited.
That's our compensation.
That's
That's
part of your
Is that the
pay.
line item budget in the town for select board? It's like $22.50.
Question?
ARPA funds.
Just strategic, do you want a list of our wishes? What do you want before the meeting? Like, is it just going to be like work off of what we did last time?
Well, let me speak on that. So the discussion is going to be a little bit more open, but I think that last one I was in, we came in with all the macro level pie in the sky issues. Here's the issue. I think we should focus more on the micro revenue, because then at least if we can focus on the micro revenue to come up with just generate more revenue for multiple purposes, we can, so we had both. But I think that the strategic planning that in 10 years I want a silver dome on top of this to, because Michael Grove's been running government so great, doesn't really help if I don't know where the money is. So my suggestion would be that from a strategic planning, maybe maybe subsection strategic revenue planning should be like a focus. That's what I was thinking about, unless maybe I misunderstood what you were saying. Because I feel like the last meeting we went in, we had all these great ideas, and all we came across was that we need a grant writer that we still don't have.
No, we did more than that.
Yeah, but I mean, from a, you know, I think we spent more time on, again, on a more visionary things versus, you know, how we're gonna make some money. But, again, that we can talk about it then.
What was that?
No, I'm just saying, I'm with you, I think that's a good
Revenue,
I think
but-
that's agenda item 1.
But I do think we have to identify, well, we can talk about anything, right? I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like during the strategic planning meeting, like there's a lot of different things,
Are you
but I
bringing
just,
pastries?
it all depends now. You know, whether or not I open those pastries up for my mother, the pastry chef, is based on
Right.
behavior.
You did that once.
Okay, just like at home. Everybody on a turn, no one gets dessert.
You did it the first time.
Well, I'll just write up my list and you do it.
Yeah, no, but that's what I mean. Well, no, everyone come with everything. It's like an open thing, but maybe come with the tilt that this would be great for the town. These are some ideas how to pay for it. I know I'm saying a lot there, but I'm just, Shirley was looking at me like I got 100 nuts.
It's all right. Just come up with my list and go from there.
Just don't go too long, remember what we said, smaller prioritizes, prioritize list.
Mr. Gilberto, would you like to say something?
On this topic, or?
Jen's pointing a pen at you. Sorry.
Did you want me to say something?
I think we hijacked your report.
It was like,
Maybe.
yeah, I think we follow.
Thank you, Mr. Massey, that's correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
So you reminded us about the 12th and the 13th.
I was just reminding you about the meetings.
Is that it?
Well, I will also say that in line with that, I will be working with the chair to set up a date for an open meeting law training that would be available to all board, committee, and commission members. Certainly not mandatory and not expecting everybody to attend. And we won't be able to pick a date that works for everybody, but we're going to try to work for something that's generally favorable for getting as many people as we can from as many boards and committees. I expect it would be either late November or early December, but just to let folks know that that'll be coming out. And that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Massey, do we have a final motion?
Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Anything on the accessory dwelling unit, and that's coming up?
Sure.
Is there supposed to be, I don't know, public hearings or some sort of information about that?
So I participated or attended a webinar put on by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities today. They said many times that they will be promulgating regulations, but could not tell us when they would be promulgating those regulations. When they might
By
be
the first
available.
week of February?
Yeah. Well, they did say that. They said it would be before February 2nd, which was fantastic, but not very helpful for town meeting planning purposes. So I talked with the planner afterwards, and I believe the intention is to either talk with the planning commission or to talk in a joint meeting, if we're taking up an appointment anyway, about a plan. But I think we're looking at a January special town meeting in order to have something, however minimal it might be, based on what we know right now, available for the town to consider and to have on the books ahead of that February 2nd deadline. So we've been trying to identify a date with the schools. It would be in late January, that's my hope. But it's going to happen quickly, and we're going to need to sign a warrant quickly. The planning commission's going to have to go through their efforts, assuming that they're also supportive, which I believe they are based on what they said at the September meeting. But we are monitoring it, and we are trying to get information. What worries me is that we're going to have to set a warrant either in the middle of December or early January. We may not know what those regulations say. We may not know whether our bylaw is fully addressing what those regulations say. We'll only know what the law said and how much we respond to it. So that's going to be a challenge.
Hopefully, we will defer to the CPC to get some of these ideas, and then we can have an agenda item after to talk about it. I just don't want to get the discussion. I don't want this discussion to go too far right now because it just wasn't on the agenda. So it's a pretty big topic.
Just in relation to that, though, I think maybe there should be some concern as far as the timing of the town meeting, and I know that the state isn't held it right now, but once we pass the bylaw in the town meeting, there's a 90-day window for the Attorney General to approve them, and then we have applications coming in the first week of February, and no bylaws in place
So the
So
bylaw,
there'll be a cusp period where certain regulations may apply and certain may not?
so the bylaw would be retroactive to the town meeting vote, assuming it's approved by the Attorney General. It's going to be an unknown.
Yeah.
So we did talk to town council about that because we're concerned about the timing. But, you know, upon approval, it's retroactive to the vote of town meeting.
Okay. So that anybody getting an application February 2nd?
We would be saying this is the bylaw.
Here's what was voted. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Good, okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Massey, second by Mr. O'Leary. Any further discussion? Hearing
Yes,
none.
before everybody leaves, we have to sign things.
Before everybody leaves, we have to sign things. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Including the sixth member.
So, we're all signing this.
Do you want me to sign this, or do you want to correct it first?
Nine.
It says 2023.